Chapter 1090. As he kissed her more and more wildly, her whole body slowly stiffened. He was very satisfied with her reaction. He liked her shy response. His teeth teased and nibbled on the tip of her tongue. He swept his tongue across her lips and teeth and went deep into her mouth. He couldn't stop himself from kissing her. At first, he still had a little interest in teasing her, but the deeper the kiss, the more he couldn't control himself, and in an instant, it aroused his desire to go even deeper. Just kissing like this made him unsatisfied, and deep down, he wanted to possess more. In fact, during this period of time, he had been restraining himself from touching her. However, her initiative last night had liberated him for a long period of time, and he couldn't stop. Originally, when he woke up in the morning, he still wanted her. Seeing that she was sleeping soundly, he couldn't bear to disturb her. But now, he couldn't control himself. Uncontrollably, as he kissed her, his large palm reached into the blankets and grabbed her waist. He pulled her body towards him, and the soft touch of her body made his heart tremble. His large hand wandered around her back, following her exquisite curves into the neckline of the bathrobe, and his target was precisely her. Xianxia moaned softly, moving unnaturally, and her breathing gradually became faster. This man, was he trying to kill her? Did he have to be so energetic? Was he planning to swallow her up until not even her bones were left? No matter how strong a person's will was, they couldn't continue pretending. She quickly woke up, but there was some astonishment between her eyebrows. Obviously, she was quite frightened by his inhumanly strong energy. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was a pair of deep phoenix eyes, dark and endless. That breathtaking light, but also faintly revealed a sense of teasing. She narrowed her eyes again, avoiding his playful gaze, and pushed his shoulder in a complaining manner, her beautiful brows tightly knitted together. This action fell into the man's eyes, but it seemed to have the intention to stop. The rippling light in the corner of his eyes seemed to have been electrified. This woman, she was born to be a seductress. If it was in ancient times, she would probably cause chaos in the court. And he was the incapable ruler who was bewitched by her. What? You're finally willing to wake up? Wuxia looked up, pinched her cheeks, and lightly pecked her eyelids a few times. The smile on his lips had a hint of evil. His eyes were full of ridicule, but his large palm was messing around inside her clothes. She quickly grabbed his arm and shook her head. No, her energy had been squeezed dry, so why was he still so energetic? He easily denied her and domineeringly pressed his lips against hers once again, lingering charmingly. The tall man's body pressed down on her body, but he was concerned about not hurting her. As for her feelings and resistance, he didn't have the time to care about it. His body, which had been suppressed for so long, was extremely tense and clamoring for her. His large palms forcefully grabbed her thighs and pulled them up. His strong thighs went between her legs and raised her butt. It was the sound of a belt being pulled. Heavens again? Chapter 1091. Like a drowning person grabbing onto a straw, she reminded him, Your phone is ringing. Wuxia's lips twitched as he ignored the incessant ringing of his phone. Don't bother about it. Xianxia was startled. He bit her lips hard and said in a deep voice, Now, you just need to look at me. Under the incessant ringing of his phone, he slowly sank into her. He pressed her down and did it a few times without any scruples. Initially, he was still restraining himself, but when the woman under him moaned softly, his movements suddenly became ferocious. On the soft king-sized bed, at this moment, it was his world. He possessed her. Although she was exhausted and did not take the initiative to cater to him like last night, she still knew how to respond to him. In the depths of their passion, she only blindly buried her little face into his neck and endured it. She was simply like a wronged kitten, whining and moaning weakly from time to time. Her hot breath blew into his ears, but it was undoubtedly a form of torture for him. Little did she know that her actions had stimulated a hidden desire in him, almost turning him into a beast of lust and devouring her until not even her bones were left. There was no doubt that in this aspect, Wuxia was a man with a lot of energy. Compared to him, Her physical strength was really poor. In the end, she was even a little dazed. There were a few times when he wanted to get her on top of him, but her body was too weak. Thus, he had no choice but to press her down and do it a few times, which could be considered to have satisfied him. After doing it once, the man decided to go around her and give up. In the end, Xianxia could not resist the fatigue. Her body was so weak that she fell on the bed and did not want to move. Her eyelids were so heavy that she could not open them. She turned around and quickly fell asleep. In the huge room, it was filled with a unique, charming atmosphere after making love. Until his heavy breathing slowly calmed down, he was secretly a little puzzled. When did he become so greedy for women? She lay on her side and unconsciously curled up into a small ball. Her messy black hair was scattered on the pillow, half covering her jade-like cheeks. There was an indescribable charm to her. Wuxia lowered his head to look at her. With just a glance, a certain part of him was stirred up again. This woman was really like a demoness in ancient times. She was born with the ability to bewitch people. Even if she lay there without moving, her calm posture was always so bewitching. However, he really could not bear to do it again and again, so he decided to let her go first. He was not in a hurry to devour her. In this aspect, he was not like other men who were eager for sex. Instead, he liked to tease the delicacy until the end and enjoy it. Also, he did not want to frighten her. There was still time. He picked her up horizontally. Her body was so weak that it was beyond words. He secretly cursed. This woman's physical strength was really not able to withstand the torment. After just a few times, her body seemed to have turned into a puddle of spring water. It was as if she had no bones. After they finished, they were sweating quite a bit. Both of their bodies were a little sticky. Thus, he carried her into the bathroom and took a shower together. He helped her clean up. In the meantime, he ordered people to remove the dirty bedsheets. Chapter 1092. In her hazy state, she felt a warm hand gently wiping her body with a towel. And who was it that carried her onto the bed, his long, muscular arms wrapped around her waist? The only response she heard was the sonorous and powerful heartbeat. After carrying her to the bed, Wuxia changed into a well-ironed suit. He was in high spirits and looked like an elite of the empire. Even though they had sex, he did not show any signs of fatigue. This man had always been very energetic. Just as he was about to leave, he saw the person on the bed open her eyes in a daze. He walked to the bedside and squatted down slightly. His large palm gently caressed her forehead. His thin lips curved as he said in a deep voice, "Wait for me to come back today. Let's have dinner together." His voice was still low and mellow. His palm was still so warm. However, at this moment, Xianxia's consciousness was hazy and she was extremely tired. She could not tell if she was awake or in a dream. Seeing her in a daze, the man could not help but laugh. He leaned over and planted a kiss on her forehead before getting up to leave. After a moment of shock, her heart was accompanied by waves of disappointment. Hence, she closed her eyes again and fell into a deep sleep. In the afternoon, when Xianxia returned home, Yu dragged him to do his homework. Recently, under Yu's guidance, Xianxia had finally memorized the multiplication table. His arithmetic skills had also improved. At least, he did not have to count with his fingers anymore. Xianxia was extremely gratified. However, Yu felt a little indignant and raised his hands in protest. "Mommy, you're biased." He had memorized the multiplication table since he was 3 years old. He had never seen her look so gratified. Xianxia was silent. She thought to herself, how can this be compared? In the past, Xianxia found it difficult to add and subtract. Now, he finally knows how to multiply and divide. After Xianxia finished his homework, he pestered Yu to go to the night park to enjoy the lanterns. It was going to be the Mid-Autumn Festival soon. Many parks were starting to prepare for the Mid-Autumn Festival. It was especially beautiful. After Xianxia gave a few instructions, Xianxia dragged Yu out of the door. Night fell. The moon hung above the treetops. Wuxia brought her to China's first pavilion. They walked into the restaurant. This time, the manager of the restaurant served them personally. As soon as he saw them, he greeted them warmly and led them to the most elegant box. Earlier, Minyu had made a phone call to inform the manager that he was in charge of the matter. Of course, with Mu Yaja's status, he naturally did not dare to slight him. What's more, for a small restaurant like his to receive young Master Qin's attention, and for him to personally bring people over, it was naturally a great honor for him. Actually, this private room had been reserved by a guest at a high price earlier, and it was also scheduled for this evening. However, didn't they bump into it now? Minyu had repeatedly reminded him over the phone that his master did not like noisy environments. He would definitely open a private room with a quiet environment to serve them well. No matter how distinguished a guest was, it could not be compared to this. Even if he offended other guests, the manager had no choice but to force himself to push them aside. He respectfully led them into the private room. The manager personally handed them the menu and stood by the side with a smile on his face, waiting patiently. Naturally, there was no need to wait after ordering. Mu Yaja only needed to move his fingers to do what he wanted. Chapter 1093. It was only then that Xianxia started to feel hungry. Her stomach was acting like an empty fort. Her eyes swept across the rows of appetizing pictures. Although these dishes were only pictures, she was so hungry that it was as if she could smell some kind of aroma from the pictures. She was drooling. She wanted to eat this, she wanted to eat that. Her eyes were a little dazzled as she looked at them. It was hard for her to make a decision. She was so greedy that she wanted to order the entire book on the table and eat to her heart's content without restraint. But she was also worried that she wouldn't be able to handle it. If she couldn't finish it alone, it would be a pity to waste it. Xianxia raised her head to look at the man sitting by the side. She saw that he was casually playing with the exquisite cutlery, but he didn't look in her direction. It seemed like he wasn't hungry, but it also seemed like he didn't have much of an appetite. Xianxia sighed in her heart. She was more or less annoyed. It seemed like she had to settle this meal by herself again. He didn't seem to be in the mood. She ordered a few dishes. The manager smiled and asked for Mu Yaja's opinion. Then he turned around and left. The spacious private room suddenly quieted down. The scene now seemed too extravagant and corrupt. The two of them occupied a big round table just like that. Xianxia raised her head to look at the decorations and furnishings around her. The antique decorations had a unique classical charm. Even the chairs were exquisitely carved wooden chairs. Suddenly, she saw something interesting. Xianxia curiously stared at the ink painting beside the screen. The painting of a naked maid, the bold and elegant calligraphy. The painting paper had a yellowish hue from the passage of time. It seemed to be very precious. It was framed with an expensive frame and hung high on the wall. She kept looking at it. For a moment, she was entranced. She clicked her tongue in wonder. Mu Yaja glanced at her and saw that she was staring in a certain direction in a daze. He followed her line of sight and frowned slightly at the sight of the rather ancient painting. The manager quickly led the waiter to serve the dishes. Taking this opportunity, Xianxia turned to him and said with a smile, "The painting hanging on the wall is very beautiful." The latter was startled. Her sudden words baffled him. He then followed her gaze and looked at the painting. Only then did he understand. His face revealed an unconcealable pride as he said with a smile, "Huh, that's right, this painting is not only beautiful, but it's also extremely precious." Xianxia blinked in confusion as the manager continued, "Haha, do you know Gu Kaiji from East Jin Dynasty?" She shook her head. Gu Kaiji was a very talented painter in history. This painting was one of his female historical proverbs, but it was his authentic work. It can be considered a precious collection. "This painting is from your collection?" she asked in surprise. The manager shook his head regretfully and explained, "If it's mine, why would I open this restaurant? This is from the collection of an old friend of mine who has a good relationship with me. He's the same as me. He likes rare scrolls and is also an antique collector. I heard that this painting was specially bought from England at a high price for his private collection. He often comes here, so he lent me this painting to hang in this private room. It's considered to be his face." Chapter 1094. However, he was not the owner of the painting, so he could not make the decision. Moreover, this painting was already rare and precious. How could it be bought with ordinary money? Moreover, this painting was his old friend's lifeblood. He treasured it so much that he did not even bat an eyelid when the price was raised to an astonishing level. Soon, all the dishes were served. The manager greeted them with a few more words and then left. Xianxia was already craving for it. She picked up her chopsticks and wanted to pick up the sweet and sour pork ribs. However, her chopsticks were not very smooth and she was very unfamiliar with them. The pork ribs were slippery and she could not pick them up no matter how hard she tried. For a moment, she looked a little embarrassed. He really did not give her face. She was a little sulky. She bit her lip and looked around. She had no choice but to pick up other dishes. Just as she lowered her head to taste the delicious food, there was suddenly a pork rib on her plate. She looked up in surprise and saw Wuxia put down his chopsticks and looked at her indifferently. Xianxia's heart warmed because of this little consideration. Wuxia chuckled. "Eat more if you like it." Wuxia picked up his chopsticks again. He was more or less hungry. She didn't know why, but her gaze was deeply attracted to his white and slender fingers. They were so beautiful. The joints were distinct and the fingers were slender. There was a diamond steel ring on his middle finger. It was really more beautiful than a woman's hand. Such a hand, holding exquisite chopsticks. The scene was so beautiful that it could not be imagined. Wuxia glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. Seeing that she was staring at his hand, he could not help but raise his eyebrows. "Why aren't you eating? Your hand is so beautiful. It's white and long." Xianxia said enviously. Wuxia's eyebrows twitched slightly. "Let's eat." "Okay." The two of them finished eating and left the restaurant. There was a river opposite the restaurant. Xianxia was full. She pulled Wuxia for a walk by the river. Her phone suddenly rang. Xianxia picked up the phone. It was Qin Zhou. "Xianxia, it's been decided for you. The role of Xianxia in Lethal Beauty has been decided for you. Thank you for your hard work, Chairman Qin. If you ask me, I think you're an idiot. You don't want to play the female lead, but you want to play the evil female supporting character. Don't blame me for not reminding you. After this drama airs, you'd better wear a pot lid. Otherwise, if the fans recognize you, they'll definitely smash your rotten cabbage." Xianxia let out a hollow laugh. "It can't be that cruel, right? You think? Has the female lead been decided?" "Yes. Lin Ji was the female lead from the start." Xianxia pursed her lips and suddenly asked carefully, "Who's playing the male lead?" "It hasn't been finalized yet. I'll let you know when the results are out." After hanging up the phone, Xianxia looked very happy. Her face was full of joy. She raised her head and said to Wuxia with a smile, "Wuxia, I've taken on a new drama. I'm so happy." She originally thought that after that incident, the chances of her getting the role in Lethal Beauty were very slim. She didn't expect that even though she had offended the higher-ups of Global Pictures, she would still get an important role. Xianxia was so excited that she jumped into Wuxia's arms. She hugged his waist and jumped around like a child. Even Wuxia couldn't help but be infected by her happy mood. Xianxia jumped into his arms. A faint fragrance wafted over. He couldn't help but wrap his arms around her body. Looking at her happy smile, he couldn't help but fall into a daze. Chapter 1095. She was so happy just because she got a supporting role? She was so easily satisfied. Looking at her bright smile, he couldn't help but feel a little impulsive. She was so beautiful when she smiled. He couldn't help but want to hold the most beautiful treasure in the world in front of her to make her smile. "You're so happy?" Wuxia laughed and couldn't help but ruffle her hair. "Yes." "Is it the female lead?" "The female lead has already been decided internally. I'm playing the supporting role," Xianxia said. "You're so happy playing the supporting role?" Wuxia was speechless. What's wrong with the supporting role? Xianxia's role requires a lot of acting skills. I think it's quite challenging. Although the character design is a little vicious and hateful. However, even a hateful person has her pitiful side. Looking at her satisfied face, Mu Yaja felt a little helpless. She was so easily satisfied? He was planning to invest in a huge blockbuster next and open up an international route for her. If she knew, would she be so happy that she would go crazy? Xianxia didn't know what he was thinking. She continued to talk to herself. Speaking of which, this is my first time acting in a costume drama. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if my ancient costume is beautiful. Shameless, Mu Yaja couldn't help but say. Looking at her happy face, he couldn't help but laugh. He liked how carefree she was and how she chased after her dreams. He liked it very much. Xianxia suddenly thought of something. She looked up and said to him, Mu Yaja, the Green Apple, has finished filming and is in post-production. When the movie is released, let's go watch it together, okay? I'm not going to watch it. Mu Yaja pursed his thin lips and looked very cold. Xianxia was stunned. This is my first movie. How can you not support me? Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes and said with a dangerous tone. Don't tell me you want your man to go to the cinema and watch you kiss another man? Xianxia suddenly fell silent. She couldn't help but argue, that was just an act. Why did you take it seriously? Acting isn't allowed either. In the future, all kissing scenes and bed scenes are forbidden. Mu Yaja said in a deep voice. Xianxia's expression turned bitter. However, she sensed the strong jealousy in his words. She raised her head and looked at his face. Then she moved closer to his lips and pretended to sniff him seriously. Mu Yaja gave her a sidelong glance. What is it? So sour. Xianxia muttered. Then she couldn't help but snicker. Someone wouldn't be jealous, right? Mu Yaja pinched her cheeks. Don't laugh. I'll laugh. Someone is jealous. So sour. Mu Yaja was a little angry now. He grabbed her waist and trapped her on the edge of the bridge, trapping her between him and the railing. Xianxia leaned against the railing of the bridge. Behind her was the cold river water. At night, the night wind blew and the cold air on the river surface rose. Don't laugh, he said. Xianxia stopped laughing immediately. Mu Yaja was satisfied. He lowered his head and rubbed the tip of her nose. Suddenly, he gave her a gentle peck on the lips. Sure, I'll make you the best actress. Do you want it? Xianxia pouted. No. She actually rejected him? One had to know that many people could only dream of him. She actually rejected him. This stupid woman. Why not? Chapter 1096. Mu Yaja did not think much of it and merely raised a brow with a smile. So, supporting my woman is considered an unspoken rule too? It was only right for a husband to support his wife. Yet she said that this was an unspoken rule? He did not understand her. Xianxia blushed and snorted. That's considered an unspoken rule too. Anyway, I don't need you to support me, I'll rely on myself. Someone used to say that she's a fool if she doesn't rely on a backer, Mu Yaja said coolly as he cast her a sidelong glance. Xianxia blushed again. That was before. It's different now. Ever since Lu Jingtian mocked her that she had relied on Mu Yaja to achieve what she had today, she felt indignant. She could get the role in the Green Apple purely based on her own capabilities. Why did she negate all her hard work with just a few words? Since she said that she was nothing without Mu Yaja. Then she would wait and see. Even without Mu Yaja, she could still make a name for herself. If supporting you is an unspoken rule, then I would have done it a long time ago. Mu Yaja stated the truth expressionlessly. Xianxia's face fell as she glared at him. You call this an unspoken rule? Xianxia held his arm as they walked by the river. Suddenly, a trembling voice was heard from behind them. Brother Mu Yaja stopped in his tracks. Xianxia could not help but stop in her tracks as well. She turned around and saw Xianxia and Yunxi standing behind them, staring at them in a daze. The smile on Xia's face froze. Xianxia's unblinking eyes, however, were fixed on Mu Yaja. Her eyes glistened with tears as they misted over. She had been looking for him all this while, but he avoided her. At this moment, however, he was being so intimate with this woman. How could this be? This was especially so when she saw Wuxia kissing her gently and even rubbing Xianxia's hair lovingly. In the past, he had only done such intimate actions to her. But now, he was giving his love and tenderness to another woman. She even said that she would make her the best actress? How much did Brother Mu like her for him to say such words? In the past, Wuxia could not be bothered to entertain her request for a role. Now, he was willing to use all means to help Xianxia rise to the top. Xianxia felt aggrieved and jealous at the same time. A wave of jealousy threatened to engulf her like a black wave. Now, she could clearly see the love in Brother Mu's eyes when he looked at this woman. It was definitely not fake. It was just that she was unwilling to admit it. How could they be so close? They were so close. They were so close that Brother Mu even said, "Is supporting my woman considered an unspoken rule?" When Wuxia saw Xianxia, the smile on his face faded a little. Xianxia's cold gaze landed on Xianxia. That pair of eyes seemed to be accusing her, but at the same time, they were like sharp blades slicing her body ruthlessly, as if they could not wait to cut off a piece of her flesh. If looks could kill, she would have been cut into pieces long ago. "Brother Mu, why didn't you pick up my call? I went to the office to look for you, but you didn't answer my wallpaper." Xianxia took a few steps toward him, her eyes full of hurt. Wuxia's gaze was extremely cold, but he tightened his grip on Xianxia's hand. Xianxia noticed his subtle action and her heart ached even more, as if it was being cut by a knife. Her heart suddenly turned cold. Chapter 1097. The jealousy in her heart seemed to be tearing it apart. But what right did Xianxia have to be so intimate with him? Brother Mu even flashed that charming smile at her. One had to know that since they were young, Brother Mu had always been unsmiling in her eyes. He rarely smiled and always had a cold expression. Even when he smiled, there was not a trace of warmth. However, when he faced Xianxia, the warmth of his smile seemed to melt the ice. Why? Xianxia was really indignant and extremely aggrieved. She kept feeling that her privileges by Wuxia's side had been snatched away. Even though Wuxia had pampered her since they were young, she was still careful, afraid that she would offend him if she did not do well. In her heart, Wuxia was like a high and mighty god who was not to be messed with. Xianxia was different. The two of them walked by the river hand in hand like an ordinary couple, bickering, laughing, and flirting. Xianxia was envious. Is Brother Mu really sincere to me? She could tell that Xianxia was not ordinary in his heart. She was special. She was even more special than me. Xiaxia's shoulders trembled when she saw the faint jealousy and viciousness in Xianxia's eyes. A woman's jealousy was really scary. Looking at Xianxia's eyes, if Wuxia was not around, she would probably skin her alive. "Wuxia, let's go." Xianxia tugged at his hand. Wuxia hummed in acknowledgement and turned to leave with his wife without sparing her another glance. Seeing that Wuxia was about to leave, Xianxia wanted to chase after him, but Xianxia grabbed her arm. She was angry and annoyed. Suddenly, she cried out indignantly, "Brother Mu, this woman is not that simple. I heard that Xianxia had a meal with the executives of Universal Pictures a few days ago. I even saw her get into that man's car. Maybe, in order to climb up the social ladder, she even slept with him. What's so good about such a dirty woman?" Xianxia froze when she heard this. She turned around and glared at her coldly. Wuxia furrowed his brows and turned around. His gaze was dark as he asked, "How did you know that she was attending a dinner with Worldwide's top management?" Xianxia did not catch the dangerous undertone in his words. Thinking that Wuxia knew about this matter, she excitedly said, "Look, you know that too, right? I was right, wasn't I? Brother Mu, you mustn't be deceived by this woman's innocent appearance. I think she is very shrewd. In order to achieve her goal, she will do anything even. Let me ask you, how did you know about this?" Wuxia coldly interrupted her and questioned her. Everyone kept their mouths shut about this matter and did not spread it at all. It was impossible for outsiders to know about this. How did Xianxia know about this? Wuxia was sharp and could sense that there was something fishy about this. Otherwise, How did Song Enya know about it? Song Enya was stunned for a moment before she realized it. Of course, she could not tell Wuxia that she had hired paparazzi to secretly take photos of Xianxia, could she? Right now, the more words she spoke, the more likely it would be for her to slip up. She did not know how to smooth things over. Wuxia's eyes darkened. He could roughly guess how Song Enya knew about this matter. Could it be that she hired someone to take those 2 photos? Chapter 1098. Wuxia was a little disappointed in her and said coldly, "Enya, it seems that I've been too lenient with you in the past. Now, you'd better remember that Xianxia is my woman. I don't want to hear a single word of her slander from your mouth in the future." "I say, okay. Song Enya, don't make me lose my patience with you." Wuxia's words were so cold that it made one's heart tremble. Song Enya bit her lower lip hard, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not say anything. How could she admit defeat in front of Xianxia? Let her laugh at her? No way. She suppressed the grievance and anger in her heart as her whole body trembled. Song Yunxi smiled and said, "Uncle Mu, Enya is still young and immature. She's a little willful, so why bother with her? There should be a limit to willfulness." As soon as Wuxia's cold words fell, Song Enya's shoulders trembled and her eyes turned sour. "Let's go home." Wuxia put his arm around Xianxia's shoulders and turned to leave without looking back. Song Enya was heartbroken. She threw herself into Song Yunxi's arms and cried sadly. When she got home, Xiao Yichen and Yu were also back. Xianxia accompanied the 2 little guys for a walk around the house with little Zhizha. When she came back, she was so tired that she almost collapsed. She took a comfortable hot bath and fell asleep comfortably. Wuxia also took a bath and walked out in his pajamas. When he saw that she had fallen asleep, he turned off the lights and went to the study room. Wang Chuanda had already sent the documents for the planning case over via email. In addition, there were some cases that needed his approval. Hence, he sat in the study room for an hour and did not come out. In the blink of an eye, it was already 2 in the evening. Xianxia was sleeping soundly when she was suddenly woken up by the ringtone of her cell phone. She lazily propped herself up and vaguely recognized that it was not her ringtone. She threw her head back on the bed, turned over, and continued to sleep. The bell rang once, and after a period of silence, it rang again. She was in a deep sleep and did not have the mental strength to pay attention to it. She was too lazy to care. She thought that she would wait for Wuxia to return to his room and check the missed calls on her phone. How could she have known that the ringtone would not let her go? It rang again and again, persistently driving her crazy. Xianxia was also angry. This person was not letting her have a good night's sleep. Thus, he sat up and rubbed his messy hair. His expression was very ugly and very dark. Although she did not have a terrible morning temper like Wuxia, she was still depressed. Anyone who was not fully awake would naturally have a bad temper. She flipped over and got out of bed. She almost missed a step and fell to the ground. This time, she almost sprained her heel, and her mood became even worse. With great difficulty, she groped around in the direction of the ringtone and pounced on the clothes rack. After fiddling with it for a while, she fumbled in Wuxia's suit pocket for a long time before pulling out a vibrating cell phone. Xianxia groggily swiped on the screen for a long time in her sleep before answering the call. Her tone was a little unhappy and sounded like she had just woken up. "Who is it?" It was already 1 in the morning. Who could be disturbing her sleep like this? On the other end, the woman who was about to speak suddenly choked in shock. Then she froze. "Xianxia?" Out of the blue, a startled voice was heard. Xianxia, who was half asleep and half awake, was jolted awake by the scream. Chapter 1099. Xianxia? Why is Brother Mu's phone with you? Aren't you 2 staying together? Xianxia hung up the phone right away. The phone rang again. She hung up again. This time, Song Enya called again. Xianxia picked up the call with a displeased expression, her tone revealing her impatience. "Song Enya, what do you want?" Song Enya's slightly jealous and anxious voice came through the phone. "Is Brother Mu with you?" "What does this have to do with you? Xianxia, you're so cheap and shameless. Is it you? Brother Mu wants me to apologize to you. Is it your idea? Let me tell you, I won't apologize to a cheap wretch like you. Xianxia flew into a rage out of humiliation and cursed a few times. Xianxia, who was already feeling frustrated, hung up the phone, switched it to silent mode, and threw herself back on the bed. However, her ears kept ringing with Xianxia's curses, which filled her with grievances. Tossing and turning, she could not fall asleep no matter how hard she tried. By the time Mu Yaja returned home, it was already 2 in the morning. When he returned to his room, he turned on the table lamp and saw Xianxia sleeping peacefully on her side. His thin lips curled slightly as he walked over to cover her with the blanket, only to see that his phone had been tossed aside. Mu Yaja picked up his phone and glanced at the screen. He saw that there were 25 calls from Xianxia, and 2 of them had already been answered. She picked up the calls? What did Xianxia say? Mu Yaja knitted his brows and walked to the balcony to return the call. It rang a few times before it was picked up. Xianxia's voice came from the other end. Is this Brother Mu? It's already so late, why are you looking for me? Brother Mu, I'm sad. Can you come over and keep me company? Xianxia's voice sounded a little intoxicated, as if she had been drinking for a long time. Even her words were a little slurred. Brother Mu, I'm so sad that I'm about to die. Can you keep me company? Where are you? Monarch's Descent. Sovereign's Descent was the most famous bar in Beijing. Junlin Bar was opened by a famous artist in the entertainment industry, and most of the customers who went there were well-known directors, artists, celebrities, and producers in the entertainment industry. Of course, some of the rich young masters in S-City also frequented the bar, and it was known as the Hall of Fame in Beijing. It was also a bar that Xianxia frequented. She seemed to be in a bad mood from crying. Coupled with the fact that she was drunk, the Missy had lost her usual elegance and arrogance, revealing the fragility in her bones without any concealment. She couldn't figure it out. Her love for Mu Yaja was no less than Xianxia. Why was Xianxia able to obtain his favor? But she couldn't? Holding on to a glimmer of hope, she mustered up the courage to call him. Even if he didn't pick up, she thought, maybe he didn't want to pick up? However, when she held on to such a humble hope and swallowed her pride to call him again and again, it was Xianxia who picked up the call in the end. It's already so late, yet he's with Xianxia? Could it be that Brother Mu isn't just playing around with this woman but is serious about her? Does he really like Xianxia? At that moment, Xianxia suddenly felt that she had lost all hope. Chapter 1100. He indulged her, and no matter what she wanted, he would satisfy it one by one. She had always thought that she would be the only woman he would dote on forever. Even if she did not have a status, she was willing to be by his side. She did not expect that her position by his side would be replaced by another woman. Xianxia, he seemed to dote on Xianxia more than he doted on her. He indulged her in everything. She was jealous. She was crazy jealous. Why could Xianxia have what she could not have so easily? This was not fair. The more she thought about it, the sadder she felt. She burst into heart-wrenching sobs over the phone. Mu Yaja could not help but frown and whisper, "Stop fooling around. Go home." "Brother Mu, can you come over and keep me company?" She almost begged him humbly. "Just this once. Come over and keep me company now, okay?" Mu Yaja remained silent. He turned to look at Xianxia, who was lying on the bed, and a hint of coldness appeared between his brows. Her phone was suddenly snatched away from her, and a man's voice came through. "Hello, are you Enya's friend? She's dead drunk now. If she continues drinking, I'm afraid something will happen. She refuses to let anyone send her home and stays at the bar. If this continues, I'm afraid something will happen." Mu Yaja remained silent. The man continued, "Quickly come and take a look at Xianxia. It's not a good thing to get drunk all day. If word gets out that the mayor's daughter is getting drunk at a bar, it'll ruin her reputation. Quickly come over and send her home. If anything happens, it'll be too late for regrets." The last sentence had a deeper meaning. Mu Yaja frowned and glanced at Xianxia again before replying casually, "I'll be right there." With that, he hung up the phone. Wuxia walked to the bedside and covered her with the quilt. He planted a kiss on her forehead, then turned and left the bedroom, closing the door behind him. Behind him, Xianxia slowly opened her eyes, but they were filled with coldness. Inside the bar, Xianxia was overjoyed when she heard that Wuxia was coming over immediately. Brother Mu still cared about her. He drove all the way. Wuxia parked the car in front of the bar, but he didn't get out of the car. It was not that he did not know what Xianxia was thinking about him, nor was it that he had not expressed his feelings for her before. Perhaps his attitude wasn't clear enough? Xianxia still harbored illusory fantasies about him. To her, it was just a form of sustenance for her mother. It was only because she had a similar appearance to his mother that he couldn't help but think of Xianxia when he saw her. Therefore, he had always doted on her and indulged her. Whatever she liked, he would naturally go along with her wishes. He still had some feelings for Tian, but even so, he still had his bottom line. After getting out of the car, he walked into the bar. It was already midnight, but for this bar, the atmosphere had just reached its climax. In order to avoid the paparazzi, many artistes could only go out very late at night. Hence, the bar was really starting to get lively at this moment. Wuxia walked to the bar counter and quickly spotted the woman lying in front of it. He slowly walked over to Xianxia's side and reached out to give her shoulder a push. Chapter 1101. She didn't seem to have put on any makeup when she went out. Her face looked a little haggard, but her delicate facial features were still beautiful. It seemed that because she had been crying for a long time, her beautiful eyes were a little red and swollen, making her look even more miserable and pitiful. The music in the bar quieted down at once, and a soothing, slow rocking song played. Wuxia did not push her away, but his face looked a little cold. He lowered his head and looked at her coldly before slowly saying, "Don't you think you look ugly when you're so drunk?" Xianxia was stunned. She lowered her eyes helplessly, her tear-filled face looking miserable as she mumbled, "Yes, I also think that I'm ugly like this, but... Brother Mu, why are you ignoring me?" Wuxia said lightly, "I've said it before. Before you realize your mistake." "What mistake? What did I do wrong?" She broke down suddenly. I just, Enya, I know what you think of me, but I should have made my attitude very clear. It's impossible between us." "What do you mean by impossible? Is it because we're related by blood? Is it?" She hugged him sadly. "I know that I'll be prejudiced by the world if I'm with you, but who asked me to love you so much? Brother Mu, I love you more than anyone else." She suddenly thought of something and looked up at him. Forcing a smile, she said, "I don't want a status. I don't want you to marry me either. I just want to stay by your side and be your lover for the rest of my life. I just want to be with you for the rest of my life, whether or not I have a status, whether or not I have to see the light of day." "Ridiculous." Wuxia's eyes were cold. "Don't you think it's ugly to make yourself so lowly?" "I don't care," she said hoarsely, a line of tears falling down her face. "That's because I really love and adore you, brother." Wuxia's lips curled into a cold smile, but he still said cruelly, "But I don't love you." She was stunned by his words as if she had been struck by lightning. She asked indignantly, "Then, do you love Xianxia?" Xianxia suddenly grabbed him by the collar and asked seriously, "Brother Mu, answer me, do you love her?" Wuxia looked away coldly and did not look at her again. Whether he loved or not, it was between two people. It had nothing to do with a third party. There was no need for him to answer her ridiculous question. Alas, his refusal to answer the question misled Xianxia into thinking that he did not love Xianxia that much. "I don't believe that you love her. Brother Mu is just playing with her, isn't he?" She was eager to confirm, eager to find the answer on his face. Wuxia coldly ordered, "Enya, are you done fooling around? Go home now, do you understand?" "You haven't answered my question." Xianxia refused to let go of this topic. She then smiled bitterly. "You don't love her." "Of." Xianxia was stunned. She said in a daze, "I heard that you're planning to hold a press conference to announce your marriage. I'm going to announce my marriage." Wuxia's tone was cold. He paused for a moment and then said in a deep voice, "But not with her." Xianxia was completely stunned. Chapter 1102. He said that he would announce his marriage, but it was not with Mu Wanru. Who could it be then? Could it be Xianxia? Her heart sank the moment she thought of this possibility. Could it be Xianxia? She suddenly panicked and grabbed his sleeve. "Brother Mu, are you going to announce your marriage with Xianxia?" Mu Yaja suddenly lowered his head to look at her. It was still a face similar to Jiang Yishan's. However, this face was a stranger's. "Do you know?" Mu Yaja suddenly asked in a low voice. His abrupt words made her heart skip a beat. "Your face disgusts me." Those heartless and cruel words caused her heart to be completely frozen in ice. She looked at him with a heavy blow, somewhat unable to believe it. In her eyes, large drops of tears rolled down uncontrollably. "You think I'm disgusting?" She suddenly broke down. "You actually said that I'm disgusting because of that B*TCH. Brother Mu, you're so cruel. How can you be so cruel?" Mu Yaja brushed her hand away and said coldly, "She'll be my future wife." Xianxia's expression froze. "So, please treat her with respect." His words were undoubtedly a ruthless slap to her face. It was incomparably painful. Her dignity, along with that little bit of hope, was completely crushed under his feet. She came from a good family and was beautiful. There was no lack of fanatical suitors, but this man in front of her had rejected her. Why was he so cruel to her? At the side, many people curiously looked in their direction. Mu Yaja slowly turned his face, his frosty gaze sweeping across the room. The crowd was so frightened that they immediately shrank back, not daring to take another look. He looked at her again and said indifferently, "I'm here to take you home. If you don't listen, I won't care about you anymore." After saying that, he turned around to leave. Xianxia frantically pounced on him and hugged him from behind, her voice filled with despair and helplessness. "I beg you, don't abandon me. Brother Mu, I beg you, don't abandon me. I'm scared. I'm so scared." Mu Yaja said, "Then let's go home." His tone left no room for discussion. It was obvious that his patience had run out. Xianxia bit her lower lip as tears streamed down her cheeks uncontrollably. She choked out, "All right, I'll listen to you, I'll listen to you. I'll go home now." He drove her all the way to the Song family. The car stopped at the entrance, but Xianxia did not make any move to get out. Mu Yaja held onto the steering wheel and looked at her coldly. Sensing his piercing gaze, Xianxia shuddered and raised her head, only to meet his frosty eyes. "Brother Mu, get out of the car," Mu Yaja ordered. "Brother Mu, don't be so fierce to me, okay? You used to be so gentle to me." Xianxia felt wronged and was about to cry again. Alas, her tears did not work on him at all. If it were in the past, he would still be soft-hearted, but now he was indifferent. His heart turned cold, but it was despairing. Chapter 1103. Mu Yaja raised his wrist and looked at the time. His patience seemed to have run out. She immediately said, "I'll apologize to Xianxia tomorrow. I'll apologize sincerely. I know I'm in the wrong, but I only have one request. Can we go back to how things were before? Forget what I said today. Let bygones be bygones. Don't mention it again. Is that okay? Just treat it as a fresh start." Mu Yaja furrowed his brows. His face remained expressionless for a long time, but he did not reject her request either. She was elated knowing that he had agreed to it. Thus, she pushed open the door and got out of the car. Just as she closed the door, Mu Yaja stepped on the accelerator and the car sped away. He left so decisively. Xianxia's heart started to ache. Once she got home, she threw herself into the sofa and cried her heart out. She really could not think of anyone else who could occupy a place in such a proud man's heart. Xianxia? What right did Xianxia have to win his heart? Why couldn't she have it? She could not figure it out. She really could not figure it out, and she did not want to. She was already deep in the swamp and beyond redemption. When he reached home, Xianxia was still sleeping soundly. She slept peacefully, but her blanket had been kicked to one side. A look of helplessness appeared on his face. He finally knew who Xiao Yichen had inherited her habit of kicking her blanket. Thus, he slowly walked to the bedside and sat down on the side. He could not help reaching out to pinch her cheek. She seemed to be unconscious in her sleep, but she was still keenly aware that someone was rubbing her face. She waved her hand in dissatisfaction, but Mu Yaja grabbed it. He gently bent his head and pecked her fingertips with his lips. He covered her with the blanket again and turned to leave. Mu Yaja stood in the back garden. Early in the morning, the beautiful morning light sprinkled down. He lit a cigarette, took a deep puff, and a thin wisp of smoke dissipated in the morning breeze. When Yun Shirshir woke up, she was awakened by Qin Zhou's ringtone. There's an exclusive interview with Bazaar magazine tomorrow. Before the interview, you'll have to shoot a set of blockbusters. Arrive at the company before noon. You're not allowed to be late. Yun Shirshir's face was full of resentment. She walked to the window and looked out. She saw Mu Yaja standing in the back garden. She didn't know when he had returned, but he was holding his phone in his hand and seemed to be talking on the phone. "You're back," she said. Mu Yaja turned around and frowned. He had always paid attention to details. She said that he was back. Did that mean that she knew that he had gone out in the middle of the night? Yun Shirshir walked to the back garden and hugged him from behind. She smiled and said, "Why are you standing here alone in a daze?" As for him going out in the middle of the night, he did not mention a single word. It seemed that he had no intention of asking about it. Mu Yaja was stunned for a moment before asking, "Why are you up so early?" "I was woken up by Qin Zhou's call." She rubbed her eyes and looked resentful. "He called to inform me that there's an exclusive interview tomorrow and asked me not to be late. Go back to sleep." She acted coquettishly. "I just want to hug you." She felt inexplicably at ease when she hugged him. He did not say anything else. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, "I'm going abroad tomorrow. I won't be back for about half a month." "Going abroad again?" She couldn't help but complain. "Fourth uncle called and said that he's looking for me." Mu Yaja turned around and scratched her nose. "Be good. I'll be back as soon as possible." Chapter 1104. The next day, Yun Shirshir was at Huanyu Tower for an important interview. In the waiting room, she flipped through the script for The Love Diary, while Ding Ning styled her hair. From time to time, she would look at Yun Shirshir's tranquil face in the mirror and could not help teasing, "Shirshir, when will the filming of The Love Diary start?" After leaving the production team of The Green Apple, Yun Shirshir signed Ding Ning as her personal stylist. Ding Ning was a top-notch stylist, but there were many factions in the fashion industry. They often schemed against each other and ostracized each other. To be able to get close to a superstar, one needed connections. Ding Ning had the skills. After all, she had won many makeup competitions. However, she lacked connections and was not scheming. Hence, she was ostracized and had no choice but to rush to the set. Ding Ning was overjoyed and grateful that Yun Shirshir had signed her as her personal stylist and even offered her a high salary. Being able to become Yun Shirshir's personal stylist was probably the luckiest thing that had happened to her since she entered the industry. Yun Shirshir glanced at her and said, "Next month. We're still discussing the exact date." Mu Shi, who was browsing through her phone at the side, said with a smile, "I heard that Gu Xingza's team has already thought of a couple name for Shirshir and Xianxia. When the filming of The Love Diary starts, our Shirshir will be in the headlines." "What's the name?" Mu Shi's eyes lit up as she smiled. "The Lucky Couple." "The Lucky Couple?" Ding Ning heard that. Gu Xingza's Xing and Yun Shirshir's Yun. Xing Yun and Xianxia are the lucky couple. This is a good couple name. Haha. Actually, I also like watching The Love Diary and think that it's very interesting. The production team for this show is top-notch in the country. It's super heavyweight. Mu Shi suddenly cupped her face and said in a love-struck manner, "Sigh, I'm so envious of Shirshir. She can pretend to be a couple with Xianxia. If it were me, I'd wake up laughing in my dreams." If it were you, Xianxia would cry in his dreams. Ding Ning could not help but tease. Mu Shi pretended to be angry. "Hey, Ding Ning, you're not allowed to say that about me. Ding Ning suddenly said longingly, wouldn't it be great if Xianxia and Xianxia could make their act real? At that time, wouldn't our family Xianxia become the sister-in-law of the Heavenly King? Mu Shi was startled. Mu Yaja's cold face suddenly appeared in her mind. She immediately stopped. Ding Ning, don't talk nonsense. Ding Ning immediately became serious. I'm sorry. I was just joking. Xianxia, don't mind it. Xianxia said faintly, it's okay. It's just a joke. It's no big deal. There was a sudden knock on the door. Tock tock tock. The two looked at each other. Who is it? Don't tell me someone is here to rush us? I haven't finished my makeup yet. Ding Ning said nervously. How is that possible? It's not time for the interview yet. Mu Shi walked to the door and opened it, only to see Xianxia standing there. She did not know who the other was, so she asked curiously, who are you looking for? I'm looking for Xianxia. Xianxia's expression was cold, and she seemed to have come with ill intentions. Xianxia was stunned when she heard her unruly voice. She then raised her head and looked at the door. Seeing her cold expression and fierce gaze, Mu Shi was a little frightened. Xianxia ignored her and pushed her aside to enter the room. Chapter 1105. Mu Shi hurriedly tried to pull her back, but the Missy flung her hand away. She walked up to Xianxia and looked down at her condescendingly. Xianxia was on high alert. Raising a brow, she looked up and met the other's gaze without fear. The Missy sized her up coldly and remained silent for a long time. Since she did not speak, Xianxia took the initiative to ask, what's the matter? The Missy glanced coldly at Mu Shi and Ding Ning from the corner of her eyes. Xianxia understood the meaning in her eyes, so she said, Ding Ning, Mu Shi, you two can leave first. Xianxia, who is she? Is it all right? Mu Shi asked worriedly. It's fine. Xianxia comforted her. Only then did the assistant walk out uneasily. Ding Ning followed her out and closed the door. Now, only the two of them were left in the lounge. Xianxia curled her lips. Say it, why are you looking for me? He. As you wish. Xianxia was like a high and mighty almsgiver as her red lips parted slightly. I'm here to apologize to you. Although she said that she was apologizing, her face did not show any sincerity. Instead, it was filled with contempt, disdain, and even disgust. If she had not promised Mu Yaja, she would never bow her head and apologize to Xianxia. She had already gone through a huge psychological struggle to come here. Xianxia raised a brow and glanced at her. Apologize? Xianxia actually apologized to her? Was the sun going to rise from the west? That day, I shouldn't have hit you. I shouldn't have been unreasonable. It's my fault, I apologize to you. Xianxia gritted her teeth and nodded her head symbolically. However, apologizing to her was a great humiliation. She clenched her fists so tightly that her nails almost dug into her flesh. It was extremely painful. That's it? Xianxia was originally looking forward to it, but in the end, this apology had no sincerity at all. It really disappointed her. It was no wonder that a pampered Missy like Xianxia had always been pampered. She was arrogant, unreasonable, and condescending. Lowering her head to others was worse than killing her. It was not easy for her to say such a thing. I don't accept it. Xianxia expressed her attitude. Xianxia furrowed her brows and glared at him when she heard that. What? She put down her pride to apologize, but she actually did not accept it? What right do you not accept my apology? She questioned harshly, feeling incomparably humiliated. If it weren't for her misgivings, she would have slapped him long ago. What do you not to accept my apology? Look, what a lofty and self-righteous rhetorical question. Must she accept her apology to her to accept to apologize to apologize to apologize? Although she was apologizing, she didn't show any basic respect. Her words gave people the feeling that she was superior and didn't have any sincerity. How could she accept it? Xianxia said, it's your business whether you apologize or not. It's my business whether I accept it or not. Xianxia subconsciously wanted to scold her, but Mu Yaja's cold gaze suddenly appeared in her mind. She shut her mouth abruptly and glared fiercely at her. Her sharp gaze was as if she wanted to carve a piece of flesh off her body. Since you're done apologizing, can you get lost now? Yun Shirshir smiled slightly, but she mercilessly ordered her to leave. Chapter 1106. Yun Shirshir raised a brow and shrugged innocently. What else can I do? Miss Song, I'm very busy and have an exclusive interview soon. If you're looking for me, I'll get my assistant to arrange another time. How about that? Song Enya, on the other hand, raised her hand out of habit. She could not wait to slap that disgusting face of hers. She was used to being arrogant and willful. She was like this at home, venting her anger on the servants whenever she was unhappy. Yun Shirshir glanced at her frivolously. What? Are you going to hit me again? There are surveillance cameras here. It won't look good on the gentle and virtuous mayor's daughter to slap someone just because of a disagreement, right? Song Enya was at a loss for words. Biting her red lips, she suppressed the anger in her heart and retracted her hand abruptly. She then turned around and left hatefully. She opened the door and walked out. Mu Shi and Ding Ning, who were chatting, were shocked to see her appear at the door with a furious look. What are you looking at? Song Enya glared at her assistant. Mu Shi only felt that this woman was being unreasonable and did not think much of it. Thus, she stubbornly retorted, whether I'm looking at you or not is none of your business. Why do you care? How dare you talk back? Song Enya gave her assistant a tight slap across her face. This slap vented all the grievances she had suffered in front of Yun Shirshir. The force of the slap was so strong that it stunned her. After being slapped for no reason, Mu Shi flew into a rage out of humiliation and stepped forward to reason with her. Ding Ning tugged at her from behind and whispered, Mu Shi, forget it, don't cause trouble. What if she's someone you can't afford to offend? Mu Shi covered her burning cheeks and glared at her fiercely. Song Enya left with a wave of her hand. Mu Shi scolded from behind. Ridiculous. What kind of person is she? She's crazy. All right. Let's go in. Ding Ning pushed Mu Shi through the door, but the latter was still indignant. She hit me for no reason. What a crazy woman. Yun Shirshir was stunned when she heard that. She looked at her face and asked, What's wrong? That woman just now was so fierce. She slapped me, Mu Shi said, feeling wronged. Anger rose in Yun Shirshir's heart. She pursed her lips and apologized. I'm sorry. It's my fault that you've been wronged. I'm fine. Why are you apologizing to me? You're not the one who hit me. Mu Shi waved her hand and asked, Who's that woman? How unruly. Song Enya. Song Enya? Who is it? Yun Shirshir said, She is the mayor's daughter. Her father is Song Zhenghua. Mu Shi was stunned by his words. No wonder he was so arrogant. It turned out that he had some background. She was wondering how she could casually sneak into Huanyu Tower. At the thought of how she had just talked back to the mayor's daughter and almost got into a fight, she felt a lingering fear. It wasn't that she bullied the weak and feared the strong, but this was how realistic society was. Some people could not be offended at all costs. Otherwise, one would not even know how they died. She was just a small ant that could not afford to offend. Ding Ning said from the side, To think that you almost got into a fight with her just now. Thank you, Ding Ning. If not for you, I'd probably have fought with her. Mu Shi patted her chest in relief. Following the increase in Yun Shirshir's exposure and popularity, her value also rose. In the past, she did not need to hide when she went out, but now, she could not wait to be fully armed. Chapter 1107. Hats, sunglasses, and whistles were the standard. Even so, she would still become the center of attention if she appeared in a crowded place. As a result, Yun Shirshir did not even have the chance to bring the two little munchkins to a restaurant for a meal. She even had to keep an eye out for suspicious paparazzi when she went out to prevent them from following her. Even though she was very careful, the paparazzi came and went unpredictably. They still managed to take a few photos of her and Xiao Shui together. Xiao Shui was so happy that she could not sleep these few days because of one thing. Gu Xingze had followed her. She had mentioned to Xianxia that she had been a fan of Xianxia for many years. She had been a fan of Xianxia ever since he debuted. If Xianxia followed her for even a day, she would jump for joy. She had just mentioned it casually, but Xianxia had taken it to heart. After a show, she had asked Xianxia for help. Xianxia followed her. Xiao Shui did not notice it at first. Her Weibo was empty and she had very few followers. Most of them were zombie fans who came from nowhere. Hence, she did not deliberately look at any new followers. She only went on Weibo to look at the hot search list and Xia's Weibo. Other than that, she did not do anything else. Until she suddenly gained a few thousand followers overnight. Someone left a comment under one of her posts. Wow. Xianxia actually followed you. Xianxia actually followed you? Guru, what's your relationship with Xianxia? Xiao Shui clicked on her followers and scrolled to the lowest. She saw that Xianxia had followed her. Xianxia's ID was his English name. She did not believe it at first and thought that she was dreaming. She rubbed her eyes repeatedly until she opened it and saw that it was really Xianxia's Weibo account. She then covered her face with her hands and danced with joy. Sure, I love you so much. As soon as they met, Xiao Shui threw herself on her, holding her face and kissing her. Xianxia couldn't push him away. Xiao Shui was so excited that she couldn't sleep for a few nights. All she cared about was holding her phone and looking at Xianxia's account. She scrolled through his posts several times and smiled foolishly. She couldn't believe that Xianxia really paid attention to her. She would wake up laughing even in her dreams. Xianxia was suddenly a little afraid of her. If Xiao Shui knew that she was about to film the reality show, The Love Diary, with Xianxia, would she choke her to death? Here it's for you. Xiao Shui gave her a box of exquisite chocolates. Xianxia, on the other hand, did not like chocolate, so she gave it to her assistant. On this day, after the program ended, Xianxia rushed to the radio station for an exclusive interview. She sang the solo version of You Are My Love Song and ended the interview. The days passed in a busy but peaceful cycle. Until a sudden assassination attempt alarmed her. In the afternoon, Li Hanlin called to ask her where she was. At that time, Xianxia had just finished a job and was on her way home. Li Hanlin asked her to go to school. His tone was extremely nervous, but he was still restraining himself. Xianxia could still catch an unusual tremor in his voice. She immediately ordered the driver to turn around and drive to school. The driver could also hear the nervousness and anxiety in her voice and sped all the way to school. Chapter 1108. The police, armed to the teeth, were standing guard at the school gate to maintain order. The school gate was crowded with parents who had been notified of the incident. The police were constantly leading the students out of the school. The faces of the teachers and students, who were being escorted out of the school, were filled with panic and anxiety. Rather than panic, it was more appropriate to call it fear. The children, especially, kept throwing themselves into the arms of their parents, who had been waiting at the school gate for a long time, and wailed in fright. Some, however, were at a loss. They did not know what had happened and could only look at the police cars surrounding the school gate in panic. Xianxia was a little stunned. She did not know what was going on, so she pulled a parent aside to ask. The parent, who was carrying the child, said in a panic, "There was a shooting incident in the afternoon. A student called and said that school was dismissed early. I only found out what had happened when I rushed over." With that, he left in a hurry. Shooting incident? Xianxia was stunned for a moment before she walked toward the school gate. Someone grabbed her arm all of a sudden. She turned around and saw Li Hanlin. He was tall and very conspicuous in the crowd. In his arms was Yun Tianyu, who was wrapped in a blanket. "Principal? Come with me." Li Hanlin pulled her away and got into a bulletproof car. Li Hanlin only calmed down once they were in the car. Xianxia immediately took Yu from his arms. Under the blanket, the boy's face and lips were pale. He was obviously in extreme shock. He did not say a word, but his shoulders could not stop trembling. Xianxia hugged him tightly. "You, don't be afraid. Mommy is here. Mommy will protect you. Mommy. His arms suddenly hugged Xianxia's waist tightly. His little face was buried in her chest, but his body was still trembling uncontrollably. Li Hanlin recounted what had happened. The incident happened in the afternoon. The first lesson in the afternoon was music class. Yu tidied up the textbook, but the music teacher was not there yet. He did not have a good afternoon nap, so he felt very sleepy and leaned on the table. However, the moment he fell to the ground, it really happened in that second. A fatal sniper bullet penetrated the window and left a hole. It whizzed past his hairline and accurately pierced the temple of his desk mate sitting next to him in a split second. In an instant, a line of red and white blood splattered on his face. Yu was startled by the sudden loud noise. He felt some warm liquid on his face, and when he touched it with his hand, his fingertips came in contact with sticky blood. His face instantly turned pale with fright. Sitting at the same table with him was a little girl. She was smart and always had a gentle smile on her face. Yu turned around and saw that the poor girl had a bloody hole in her head before she could understand what was going on. He didn't even let out a groan of pain. The expression on his face was still the same as when he was waiting for class. Just like that, he fell straight onto the table and died without knowing why. He could only watch helplessly as a life was lost in an instant right in front of him. What made him even more fearful was that if he did not suddenly feel sleepy and collapse, that bullet would have pierced his head. Chapter 1109. The police speculated that the culprit was a serial killer. The culprit was probably someone with violent tendencies. After being provoked by the outside world or being mentally unbalanced, he displayed extreme antisocial behavior. Was that really the case, though? Yun Tianyu did not think so, though. Before the assassination, the culprit hacked into the school's security system, destroyed the CCTV, and even cut off the surveillance cameras within a few hundred meters of the school. This was a premeditated assassination. The location of the ambush should be at the abandoned building opposite the classroom. That abandoned building was 100 meters away from the school, yet it was the perfect spot for an ambush. Yun Tianyu was in a state of mental stagnation. This assassination was too sudden and caught him off guard. The culprit was definitely a well-trained killer. After the failed assassination attempt, the culprit escaped unscathed and did not leave any traces behind. Just as Yun Tianyu had guessed, this was almost a successful assassination attempt. He was only a few milliseconds away from death. Naturally, Li Hanlin would not tell Yun Shishir about Yuyu's suspicions. He only told her that this was a school shooting accident. Yun Shishir hugged Yuyu with heartache. The child was still so young, yet he had experienced such a terrifying shooting accident. He must be scared out of his wits. She kept comforting Yuyu with her gentle voice. Only then did his fear gradually subside. The car drove back home. Yun Shishir carried Yuyu into the bedroom. Just as she placed him on the bed, he suddenly jumped down from the bed, walked to the window, and closed it tightly. He then drew the curtains. The entire bedroom was instantly engulfed in darkness. He walked to the door and locked it from the inside. His hands froze for a moment. Then, perhaps because he was too nervous, he relaxed all of a sudden. His whole body pressed against the door and slowly fell to the ground. His breathing was somewhat rapid and uneven. Yun Shishir hugged him with heartache and comforted him gently. Yuyu, don't be afraid. It's all right now. Don't be afraid. Mommy is here. Mommy is here with you. Yuyu buried her little face in her arms. Her face was expressionless, but from an angle that Yun Shishir couldn't see, her eyes were filled with murderous intent. If other children were to encounter such a terrifying scene, with their lives hanging by a thread, they would definitely be scared to the point of crying. On the other hand, Yuyu did not shed a single tear. She only held onto Yun Shishir's clothes tightly and hugged her tightly. Deep in her eyes, there was still a lingering fear. More than that, there was fear and anger. He did not know who had sent the assassin to assassinate him. He was just afraid that the murderer's next target would be his mommy. It was all due to luck that he was able to escape and brush shoulders with the god of death. However, if something like this were to happen again, he was worried that something bad would happen to his mommy. Compared to himself, he was more worried about Yun Shishir's safety. Yuyu bit down hard on her lips, her pearly white teeth leaving a deep mark on her lips. He did not speak a word for the whole day. Yun Shirshi's heart ached as if it were being stabbed by a knife. She did not leave his side for the whole day. It was late at night. Yun Shirshir hugged Yun Tianyu and fell asleep quietly. In the darkness, Yun Tianyu slowly opened his eyes. When he turned his head, he saw Yun Shirshir sleeping peacefully. He cupped her face and planted a light kiss between her brows. Then, he carefully extricated himself from her embrace. He left the bedroom and entered the study room. After locking the door, he gave Li Hanlin a call. Chapter 11:10. Agent Li, dispatch a team of mercenaries and station them around the villa. Don't let anyone get close to it. Yes, I understand, Li Hanlin answered. How many men can you dispatch now? I can dispatch 2 teams from the branch with about a dozen men. Yu frowned. Not enough. I'm afraid that the culprit won't give me a chance to breathe after failing to get rid of me this time. It'll take some time for the team from the headquarters to reach the capital. Only then did Yun Tianyu's heart settle a little. Have you investigated the matter thoroughly? No. It seems that this isn't a simple assassination. The killer is skillful and didn't leave any traces behind. Do you have anyone in mind? No, Yun Tianyu cursed. D****. They were in a passive position in the current situation. The enemy was in the dark while they were out in the open. Every minute was dangerous and could even be fatal. I suspect that the culprit's target is most likely Mommy and me. I was lucky enough to escape this time. However, there won't be a next time. Yun Tianyu calmly analyzed. Li Hanlin was silent for a moment before he suddenly asked, Director Yun, have you considered joining Hurricane Group? Yun Tianyu leaned back slightly against the back of the chair. His eyes suddenly turned deep and cold. As Li Hanlin and Yun Tianyu got closer, Yun Tianyu's trust in him grew. He also gradually understood that, after the veil was lifted, the mysterious Hurricane Group had a close relationship with Yun Tianyu. Yun Tianyu's relationship with Hurricane Group could be traced back to a design he had designed. Due to his poor health, Yun Tianyu rarely had the chance to go out. He spent most of his childhood in the hospital. He liked to play with toys since he was young. However, Yu was different from other children. Other children played with toys because they liked to play with them. Once they were tired of playing with them, they would throw them aside and no longer care about them. But he was different. He liked to fiddle with intricate toys and study their composition. Gradually, this study was no longer limited to simple fiddling. He learned to take apart toys. No matter how intricate the toy was, when it fell into his hands, he could carefully take apart every part and finally assemble it perfectly. In addition to toys, he especially liked to study computers, machinery, and other sophisticated things. When he was 5 years old, he drew the design of a toy missile car and posted it on the bidding website. Soon, it attracted the attention of many toy manufacturers. One day, a mysterious organization contacted him and claimed that they wanted to buy out his design. Furthermore, they offered a sky-high reward. A check with 9 digits. Yun Tianyu felt incredulous until he learned that this mysterious organization was rumored to own half of the world's arms market. It had close ties with governments, mafias, and various terrorist organizations. Its influence spanned across both the legal and illegal worlds. It was the Hurricane Group. The Hurricane Group was a name that could shake the world. Every action of theirs was an existence that could affect the state of the world. Not only did it have a 50% share of the global arms market, every war in the world had to be waged from the Hurricane Group's armory, which was worth tens of billions. Chapter 11:11. It could be said that this firearms group was so powerful that no one dared to be unafraid of it. The reason why they were interested in his design was that it could be used in the military and even develop a new type of missile. Hurricane Group valued his talent in this field, so they invited him to participate in the research and development of the Deva Eye. Yun Tianyu did not agree immediately. However, Hurricane Group's friendliness was astonishing. Not only did they acquire Leji Holdings, they even transferred 60% of the company's shares to him. Furthermore, they even transferred 2 mercenary teams from Mercenary Paradise under his name, allowing him to command them. In the past 2 years, Yun Tianyu had become the true leader of Hurricane Group and was secretly working for Hurricane Group. A year ago, Hurricane Group divided the East Asian market into his hands. Previously, he was the one who breached the Pentagon's defense system. The reason was that the sea route from East Asia to North America was blocked by the US government, while this sea route was under his control. Perhaps, it was difficult to estimate the benefits involved. To put it bluntly, just the cargo ships departing from East Asia to North America alone received hundreds of millions of US dollars. Every order was enough to crush Leji Holdings' annual revenue. It was a very impressive figure. However, from a certain perspective, Yun Tianyu could not be considered a core member of Hurricane Group. Hurricane Group, on the other hand, had the intention of grooming Yun Tianyu as the next leader of Hurricane Group. Yun Xianxia was kept in the dark about all this. If she were to know that Hurricane Group, which was rumored to be in control of world wars, wanted to kidnap her son, she would probably faint from shock. Hence, it was clear why Yun Tianyu did not care about those scheming tricks. Whoever offended him should not leave any traces behind if they were capable. If he were to find out who it was, he would eliminate the source of trouble without further ado. It was that simple and crude. Yun Tianyu held the phone and leaned back in his chair. His eyes were cold and piercing. Li Hanlin was about to speak when he heard Yun Tianyu's cold voice from the other end of the line. "All right. Since someone is restless, I don't mind playing with them. I've decided." Pausing for a moment, he said word by word in a young and deep voice, "I've decided to officially join the Hurricane Group. Arrange for tomorrow's flight. I want to go to Hurricane Group's headquarters." At night, while Mu Wanru was waiting for news in her study, her phone suddenly rang. She took a look and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. She could roughly guess who was calling. Mu Wanru took a deep breath and suddenly felt a little suffocated. Could it be that her actions had been detected by him? Mu Lianjue's voice rang from the other end of the line when she picked up the call. "Mu Wanru, I think you've got guts. How dare you send someone to assassinate Yun Tianyu? Do you know how big of a ruckus you've caused? Even the government officials are involved." Mu Wanru was shocked, but she heard him say coldly, "Fortunately, I have already suppressed the matter. Didn't you promise me that you'll get rid of Yun Tianyu and Yun Xianxia for me? It's been so long, and you still haven't done anything. I'm running out of time." Chapter 11-12. Mu Wanru clenched her fists and tugged at her hair, looking extremely anxious. Mu Yaja is about to hold a media conference. Do you know what this means? It means that he's about to become the Mu family's head. When that day comes, I'll be completely finished. I think you don't trust me at all. His voice suddenly turned as cold as ice, revealing a thick and suffocating sense of danger. Mu Wanru pursed her lips tightly. In fact, how could she trust Mu Lianjue? She only had the feeling that she was being used. She heard his sinister voice close to her ear. "I've already gotten rid of that assassin. Whether the operation succeeds or not, no one is to be left alive. If you dare to act rashly again..." Mu Lianjue did not continue speaking though. Mu Wanru shuddered at his words. In other words, if she were to ruin his plan again, he would mercilessly kill her. In that case, if she obeyed his every command obediently, would he still silence her after he succeeded? Given his style of doing things, there was no guarantee. Mu Wanru only had fear of him. She did not trust him at all. "Fourth uncle, when exactly are you going to get rid of those two thorns in my flesh? What's the hurry? That Yun Tianyu still has value." He snorted. "Mu Wanru, do you know that Yun Tianyu isn't such a simple child? Don't belittle him. This child has some weight." "What do you mean? I don't quite understand." Mu Wanru was baffled. "You don't have to understand. I'm only telling you that if you hadn't ruined my plan, things wouldn't be so troublesome now. Yun Tianyu was assassinated, and now, a group of armed men of unknown origin have surrounded his house. It's very difficult for my men to get close." "What? Armed men?" Mu Wanru was shocked and found it hard to believe. It turned out that, after Yu's return, Li Hanlin had sent a few armed men to guard the villa's perimeter in order to ensure the safety of his mother and son. Do not underestimate the armed men mentioned by Mu Lianjue. Mu Lianjue mistook them for militants, but they were, in fact, Mercenary Paradise's top mercenaries. There were three major mercenary organizations in the world: the Nipper Army and the Izio Mercenary Group, while Mercenary Paradise was the #1 international mercenary organization under the Hurricane Group. Mercenary Paradise had the world's top combat troops, and their fame spread far and wide, causing people to tremble with fear. Mercenaries were the cruelest war machines. No matter if it was the cold and rugged mountainous areas of Afghanistan or the mosquito-infested and unbearably hot African rainforests, a strange group of people could be seen everywhere: mercenaries. Mercenaries is a synonym for mercenaries in English. An old Chinese saying, "Generous rewards will attract brave men," is a vivid description of such people. Mercenary Paradise was the world's largest mercenary organization. As a mercenary group that relied on war for a living, it gathered many desperados who valued money more than their lives. Mercenaries were a group of special professional killers. They were hired to carry out all kinds of assassinations, kidnappings, battles, and even coups. Chapter 11:13. Regardless of one's identity, Mercenary Paradise only required one to be a professional. There were all kinds of mercenaries in this place, but they all had one thing in common: they were crazy about war. War was their everything, and they would risk their lives for the sake of profit. To put it simply, as long as someone is willing to pay me, I'll work for them. There's only money in my eyes. There's no distinction between right and wrong, good and evil. I can work for God, but I can also work for Satan. Another adjective would be desperados. Mercenary Paradise had 4 ace leaders: Vermilion Bird, Jie, Snow Fox, and O Sheng. Snow Fox was good at assassination, Vermilion Bird was good at infiltration, and Jie and O Sheng were the kings of mercenaries with outstanding leadership skills. Those in this line of work did not have much loyalty to their country, nor did they have the concept of good and evil. They were professional soldiers who would be employed by and fight for any country or nation regardless of the country's interests and all the consequences. The only thing that was enough to move them was money and benefits. How could Mu Lianjue's men be compared to these war machines? With these ace mercenaries guarding the place, Mu Lianjue's men did not even have a chance to take a step forward. Now that things have come to this, we must bring Yun Tianyu back to the Mu family first before we have a chance to act, ordered Mu Lianjue. Given the current situation, only by bringing Yun Tianyu back to the Mu family would they have a chance to act. If Mu Sheng were to take action, he could definitely bring Yun Tianyu back. Because with the power he currently held, if he wanted to, he could mobilize a group of troops from the military area at any time. Mu Wanru bit her lower lip and hung up the call. She sucked in a deep breath of cold air. A light was on in the study room. Mu Sheng was sitting in front of his desk, looking at the financial report for the new quarter. His wrinkled hands flipped through the pages one by one. With his spectacles on, he skimmed through the report expressionlessly. Knock knock knock. Someone knocked on the door cautiously. Who is it? He narrowed his eyes and looked up at the door. Grandpa, it's me, Wanru. Mu Wanru's gentle voice sounded from outside. Can I come in? I have something important to tell you. After pondering for a moment, he put the report aside and called out, "Come in." As soon as he finished speaking, Mu Wanru pushed the door open and walked in. She carried a cup of tea to the desk and put it down. She looked down and said casually, "Grandfather, I've found the child's whereabouts." The old man, who had thought that it was something important, raised a brow at her question. "Child?" "Yes. I've already found the child's whereabouts in the past few days. Should I bring him back to the Mu residence?" She probed as she studied the old man's expression. Mu Sheng slammed the table and stood up agitatedly. "Where is it? Take me there quickly. Go now. Don't waste a moment. Bring the child back immediately." "But it's getting late. Can your body take it?" The muscles on his face twitched a little because of his excitement. He had a gratified expression on his face, but when he heard her question, he said disapprovingly, "You don't need to care so much. Make the arrangements now and bring some men to bring the child back." Chapter 11:14. At this time, it was already late at night. Several black cars sped through Xianxia entrance and stopped in front of the garden bungalow. Mu Sheng sat in the car, leaning on his walking stick. His heart was in turmoil as he looked out of the window. 7 years ago, when Xiao Yichen was born, he was ecstatic. As the head of the Mu family, it was gratifying to see the continuation of the bloodline. Now, however, he learned that that woman had given birth to 2 children for the Mu family and had secretly hidden one of them. Mu Sheng was livid. What was that woman's motive? She actually hid a child. Could it be that, as Mu Wanru had said, she wanted to become a phoenix by relying on her child's status? He really doesn't know what kind of status he has. Thinking of this, he could not calm down. However, when he learned that the child was about to be returned to the family, his expression softened a little. He looked at the 2 bodyguards in black and gave them a signal with his eyes. Then, he said in a low voice, "Be careful, don't hurt the child." The bodyguards in suits alighted from the car. Just as they were about to reach the door, they heard a cold shout from the darkness. "Who is it?" Before they could recover from their shock, they saw several armed mercenaries appear out of nowhere and guard the door, not allowing them to get close. The bodyguards were stunned at first and then bellowed, "Who are you?" The mercenaries did not speak and only sized them up coldly. "Get out of the way." The mercenaries stood still and did not move an inch. The bodyguards looked at each other and decided to barge in. Just as they lifted their feet, a black shadow suddenly flashed in front of them, rushed into the crowd, and pulled out a sharp dagger from his waist. Only a few painful cries could be heard, and in just a few seconds, they fell to the ground one after another. The tendons in their arms and legs were cut. The black figure paused and slowly straightened up. He sheathed the dagger and a cold face was exposed under the moonlight. His eyes were bloodshot and murderous. Even Mu Sheng, who was sitting in the car, could feel a biting chill in his heart. It was biting cold. This person's skills were outstanding, and his moves were fast, accurate, and ruthless. In just 5 seconds, he actually broke the tendons of the bodyguards he sent out. His fighting strength was enough to strike fear into the hearts of others. Who are these people? The old man had never seen such terrifying combat power. In the entire military region, only the special forces had such a terrifying combat level. What was going on? "Grandpa, what should we do now?" Mu Wanro asked in trepidation. It turned out that it was just as Mu Lianjue had said. A group of unknown armed forces had surrounded Yun Shishir's house, preventing anyone from getting close. Mu Wanru suddenly felt a chill in her heart. Mu Sheng, on the other hand, was baffled. What were the identities of these people with such powerful skills? Mu Wanru suddenly said, "Are these people sent by Yeju to protect Yun Shishir and her son?" This brat was always doing stupid things. I think his wings have hardened. He's actually bewitched by a dirty woman. Mu Sheng banged his cane on the floor in anger. Anger rose from his heart. "Grandpa, what should we do now? I think these people are very skilled. They're not simple." He snorted. "No hurry." Chapter 11:15. The Mu family's business was huge, and its influence spread far and wide. There were many Mus in the military base. In the military base, those who held the rank of SHOU commander or higher were all members of the Mu family. Not to mention, Mu Yaja's second uncle, Mu Linfeng, was the highest-ranking commander of the military base in the capital. The Mus were inextricably linked to the military base. Hence, with just a call from Mu Sheng, in less than an hour, 8 to 9 armored anti-riot vehicles were parked at the entrance of Xianxia Walk. Once there was a special operation in the military base, even the police would have to open the way for these bigwigs. In this country, the hidden hierarchy system was still very clear. Hence, the reason why the Mus had been standing tall for so many years was because they had the absolute right to speak in the field of supreme power. Closely following behind the anti-riot vehicles was the military base's military officer, Senior Colonel Song Yi. Although he was not a member of the Mus, he was the nephew of the capital's mayor, Song Zhenghua. His wife was from a side branch of the Mus, Mu Yaja's niece, Mu Kui. Once he heard Grandpa Mu's instructions, Song Yi gave him face and mobilized all the soldiers from the special forces. Each of them was strong and fit, and they were the country's top war machines. 8 armed explosion-proof vehicles, carrying more than 30 regular army troops, majestically surrounded the entrance of the huge villa garden so that not even a drop of water could trickle through. These 30 soldiers were not to be underestimated. One must know that the Special Forces were the country's official military base. They were the vanguard of the military base and were responsible for special missions. Hence, each soldier was very strong. If one had to compare the Special Forces with the mercenaries, it would be difficult to see who was better. These 30-plus soldiers were equivalent to a company of soldiers. Hence, when Song Yi arrived with the 30 soldiers, the situation was completely under their control. Yun Tianyu stood in front of the window and looked at the black mass of Special Forces outside. His face turned ghastly pale. He didn't know what the purpose of these people was, nor did he know who these Special Forces soldiers were under whose orders, or who sent them here. However, he knew very well that the odds were against him tonight. Yun Shirshir, who was holding Yu, was also stunned by the scene outside the window. She didn't know who had sent the Special Forces outside the door, but the situation in front of her was so shocking that she was stunned and couldn't come back to her senses for a while. Mu Sheng sat in the car. Since his legs were inconvenient, he did not alight. Thus, Mu Wanru and Song Yi led their men and broke into the house. The sound of them breaking into the house alerted Yun Shirshir. Alas, what kind of combat skills did the Special Forces have? They surrounded the huge villa tightly. Even if she had wings, she could forget about escaping. The Special Forces broke in first and surrounded Yun Shirshir and Yu in the middle. Mu Wanru and Song Yi walked in and scanned the house. They saw Yun Shirshir, who was holding Yu tightly in her arms. At first, Yun Shirshir tried to resist when she saw the soldiers barging in. How could she resist these valiant state machines, though? They subdued her with one move. Chapter 11:16. Mu Wanru scanned her surroundings and her venomous gaze landed on Yun Shirshir. At this moment she looked so down and out. Her hair was messy and her eyes were red. She bit her lips tightly as she stared at Mu Wanru, her face full of vigilance. Mu Wanru grinned and glanced at Yu, who was in Mu Wanru's arms. Then, her smile became even more sinister and smug. Yun Shirshir, look at yourself. You look so pathetic now. Mu Wanru? Yun Shirshir was stunned at first. Then, there was a bone-chilling hatred in her eyes. Could it be that she had sent those soldiers from the military district? What was she trying to do? After Yun Shirshir's anger subsided, a trace of fear appeared in her heart. Mu Wanru had brought so many people to the house. She must be up to no good. However, Yun Shirshir could not figure out her motive. Hence, she took a few steps back cautiously and shielded Yu in her arms. She was so nervous that she could not breathe properly. You must be wondering why I'm here today, right? Mu Wanru smiled coldly. Then, her icy gaze landed on Yu, who was in her arms. I'm here today on Grandpa's orders to bring back the Mu bloodline. As she spoke, she smiled sinisterly and slowly took a few steps towards Yun Shirshir. Yun Shirshir, when you signed a contract with the Mu family, it was clearly written that as the contractor, you could not cause any trouble for the child's custody. But what about you? You've been hiding Ji's son for so many years. Today, it's time for the child to return to the Mu family. Yun Shirshir bit her lip hard and hugged Yu even tighter. Her eyes were fixed on Mu Wanru's every move and she was on guard. You can't take him away. Yun Shirshir said in a low voice. He's my son. You can't take him away. It was not that she did not want Yu to return to the Mu family. Instead, she was worried that if Yu returned to the Mu family, Mu Wanru would have bad intentions. She felt uneasy. You don't want to? Mu Wanru laughed sinisterly and walked in front of her. She grabbed her arm and revealed her snow-white teeth. Yun Shirshir, I think you're really despicable. Back then, you were the one who signed the contract, and you were the one who confirmed the terms on it. There were no objections. Now that you're not willing to hand over the child, I can't help but suspect that you have ulterior motives. Don't tell me. She was delusional in thinking that she could rely on her son to rise in status and become a phoenix, right? I think you're really ambitious. Shut up. Do you think I'm like you? Yun Shirshir retorted coldly, You're the one who's ambitious, aren't you? Mu Wanru's gaze turned sharp. Shut up. Yu is my son. I have custody of him. I'll never hand him over to you, not even if I die. Yun Shirshir shielded Yu behind her. She stuck out her chest and faced Mu Wanru directly. Mu Wanru also glared at her fiercely. Their gazes collided fiercely in the air and sparks flew everywhere. B****. Mu Wanru suddenly scolded her fiercely. What? Do you think I want to bring the child back? Ha! This is Grandpa's order. You're not allowed to say anything tonight. Bring the child out. Yun Shirshir took a step back and Mu Wanru took a step forward. Chapter 11:17. B****. Get the child out. With that, Mu Wanru reached out her hand toward Yu. Yu glared at her coldly and hid behind Yun Shirshir. Yun Shirshir said angrily, Mu Wanru, why should I hand my child over to you? Don't go near Yu. Keep your dirty hands away from him. What a wretch. You be ***, your child will also be a wretch. You're shameless to acknowledge a thief as your mother. Yun Shirshir's gaze turned frosty as she raised her hand to slap the other's face. The sound was crisp and clear. Mu Wanru was caught off guard. She was slapped so hard that her entire face was turned to one side. Mu Wanru turned around in a daze and looked at her in disbelief. You slapped me? Yun Shirshir bit her lower lip hard, but her face was full of hatred. She hated Mu Wanru from the bottom of her heart. She had taken away so many things from her, and now, even Yu was going to be taken away from her. Unforgivable. You're the shameless B****, aren't you? Yun Shirshir could not calm herself down. She suddenly said coldly, if Yu returns to the Mu family, then he'll really acknowledge a thief as his mother. Her words were vague. The bystanders were baffled by his words, but Mu Wanru could read between the lines. His words seemed to have accurately hit her where she felt the most guilty. She bellowed, Shut up. You're hiding the Mu family's child, yet you still dare to flaunt your prowess in front of me. B****. Crazy woman, you're not allowed to scold my mommy. You're the B****. Yun Tianyu was livid. He opened his arms wide and stood in front of Yun Shirshir. His eyes were full of hatred and anger. His heart was filled with anger and hatred. He suddenly understood who the mastermind behind this school shooting incident was. He could see that Mu Wanru was bent on getting rid of him and his mommy. From the day he and Xiao Yichen were assassinated that day, Mu Wanru's ambition could be seen. To this woman, he and mommy must be a thorn in her side. Not only that, when the time came, this woman would not let Mu Yichen off either. Now, he could not help but regret it. He had plenty of ways to get rid of Mu Wanru, yet he did not do it, which resulted in his mommy being in such a predicament. If he had acted earlier and gotten rid of Mu Wanru, today's incident would not have happened. Mu Wanru lowered her head and glanced at him coldly. She did not know what he was thinking at this moment. Yu's gaze on her was cold and chilling. She cursed, B****, who are you? What right do you have to talk to me? The one who has no right to talk to me is you. Yun Tianyu lifted his face and expressionlessly said in a hushed voice, Imposter. Yun Shirshir, who was standing behind him, did not hear his words clearly. Mu Wanru, however, heard it clearly. This child had the guts to call her an imposter. Mu Wanru flew into a rage out of humiliation. She raised her hand and was about to slap Yun Tianyu's face in the next second. Yun Shirshir reached out abruptly and held her hand tightly. Let go. Mu Wanru struggled with all her might. At the side, a soldier immediately stepped forward and restrained Yun Shirshir. Chapter 11:18. Mu Wanru reached out to pull him away. Yun Tianyu turned his head, grabbed her wrist, and bit it with a whimper. He bit down viciously, he really bit down viciously. Channeling all his anger and humiliation into his strength, he bit down as if he wanted to break her wrist. Mu Wanru struggled to shake her hand off. Letting out a shrill scream, she hurriedly tried to break free from his grip. However, Yu refused to let go of her wrist. With bloodshot eyes, he bit down harder until the tip of his teeth pierced through her flesh and he tasted blood. He had actually bitten open Mu Wanru's wrist. Ah! Mu Wanru screamed even more wretchedly and almost jumped up. Xianxia was angry and anxious. Seeing that the soldiers were about to step forward, she rushed forward to carry Yu back. Yu still refused to let go. Yu, be good, don't bite anymore. Her hand is dirty, let go, be good. With Xianxia's words, Yu obediently let go. He turned his face away and spat out a mouthful of blood. Raising his hand, he wiped the blood from the corner of his lips with his fingertips. Lowering his eyebrows, he could not help feeling nauseous. Hence, he took out a wet wipe and wiped the blood from the corner of his lips. When he looked again, he saw that Mu Wanru's wrist was bleeding profusely. She raised her hand and looked at the wound. The bite was so deep that the flesh had split open. Mu Wanru could not help cursing, "What a sharp-tongued little thing! How uncultured!" As she spoke, she gave the order, "Men, take this child away." Just as Mu Wanru finished speaking, a few Special Forces soldiers behind her took action. 3 Special Forces soldiers walked up to Xianxia. One of them held her down with one hand while the other carried the boy in his arms. Yun Tianyu did not even have time to struggle before he was caught in her arms. Earlier, Mu Sheng had repeatedly emphasized that the children were not to be hurt. Hence, even though these people were a little rough with Xianxia, they were very gentle with Yu. Even though Yu struggled in their arms, kicking and hitting him, they were, after all, trained in the Special Forces. No matter how much trouble he made, they did not move an inch. Xianxia was furious. She struggled to go forward and snatch Yu back. Mu Wanru took the lead and strode forward. She pushed Xianxia to the ground and gave her a tight slap. Xianxia's hands were restrained by the soldiers and she couldn't struggle at all. She was slapped by Mu Wanru. "Mommy," Yu's heart skipped a beat when he saw this scene. He screamed at the top of his lungs as tears rolled down his cheeks uncontrollably. He then shouted angrily, "Don't bully my mommy! Don't bully my mommy! If not, I won't let you off! I won't let you off!" Yu struggled with all his might, but he was so weak. He was only a 7-year-old child. How much strength could he have? He was not like Xiao Yichen, who had received special training from a young age. He was so weak that no matter how he struggled, he was unable to withstand a single blow from the Special Forces soldiers. Mu Wanru cast a sidelong glance at Yu and snorted. "You're overestimating yourself. You're still trying to struggle at this point." Mu Wanru was pleased with herself. She grabbed Xianxia's neck with such force that Xianxia felt suffocated. All the blood in her body rushed to the top of her head, and her face turned red. Chapter 11:19. Mu Wanru pinched Xianxia so hard that, in just a few seconds, she felt her consciousness fading away as if she were on the verge of suffocating. Immediately after, she heard Yu's desperate scream. "Don't! Let go of my mommy! Let go! Let go of her! You're not allowed to touch my mommy! If anything happens to my mommy, I'll make sure all of you are buried with her." Yun Tianyu tried to break free several times, but just as he landed on the ground, he was pulled back with one hand. He was too weak. There was no way he could compete with the well-trained soldiers. Mu Wanru was determined to kill Xianxia, so she did not hesitate to use her strength. Suddenly, a shout came from the door. Startled, Mu Wanru subconsciously let go of her hand. Xianxia collapsed to the ground and coughed violently as she clutched her throat, which was about to be broken. Yun Tianyu gritted his teeth and clenched his fists tightly. His whole body trembled uncontrollably. He was in a state of extreme fear and hatred. He was worried that Mu Wanru would be ruthless and hurt his mommy. He hated that he was so weak that he could not protect his mommy. Anger. He hated Mu Wanru's ruthless methods. At this moment, his heart seemed to be swallowed by a layer of boundless darkness. A bloody thought suddenly popped up in his mind. If he had the chance, he would definitely tear Mu Wanru into pieces. Even he was taken aback by this sudden thought. However, at this moment, hatred had taken over his heart. Mu Sheng, who was standing at the door, saw this scene the moment he entered. He could not help but stop her. "Wanru, don't blow this matter up. I'm here to take the child away." "Grandpa," Mu Wanru felt inexplicably uneasy when she saw him. What made her uneasy was that she could not let him see Xianxia's face. Otherwise, if he recognized Yun Shishir's face, which was very similar to Mu Qingqing's, he would be suspicious. Hence, she hurried forward to support him, but purposely used her body to block Yun Shishir's view. "Grandpa, why are you here? You're not in good health. It's better for you to sit in the car," he said in a low voice. "I'm worried, so I came to see the child." "Where's the child?" Mu Wanru's face froze for a moment. She then gave a look as if ordering the soldiers to bring the child forward. However, she did not realize that the reason why she could command these soldiers previously was because of Mu's. Now that Mu Xing was present, these soldiers would naturally listen to his orders. There was no need for them to obey whatever she said. Mu Wanru could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation when her order was ignored. The old man ordered, "Bring the child over and let me take a look." The soldier then carried the child to the old man. Yun Tianyou's gaze was still fixed on Yun Shishir's direction. When he saw her hugging her throat and crawling on the ground in pain with a red face and a pained expression, he felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. His gaze landed on Yu Yu, and a trace of relief appeared on his aged face. He could not help but reach out his wrinkled hand to caress every inch of the boy's facial features before stopping at his eyebrows. Similar, they were really alike. His eyebrows and eyes were very similar to Xiao Yichen's, but his nose and mouth were more like his father's. At first glance, the two children looked exactly the same. Chapter 11:20. For example, Yu Yu's eyes were bigger and narrower than Xiao Yichen's. When he grew up, there was no doubt that he would be a standard good-looking boy. Yu Yu turned around abruptly and shot him a cold look. He then raised his hand and slapped his hand away harshly. A sound was heard. He used a lot of force. The back of Mu Sheng's hand was stinging from the slap. "Don't touch me!" Yu Yu bellowed angrily, but his tone did not have the tenderness and timidity of a 7-year-old child. If he were a child of the same age, he would definitely be scared out of his wits in the face of such a large-scale confrontation. This child, however, was more courageous than others. His tone was very much like Mu Yage's when he was young, wild, and unruly. Mu Wanru glared at him. "He's your great-grandfather, don't be rude." Yun Tianyu did not look at her, though. Mu Wanru was even more enraged. This child's arrogance really made her angry and resentful. Mu Sheng was not angry. Instead, he laughed. "Hee, this child is more courageous than others. He's quite like his father. Not bad." Mu Wanru could not help saying, "Grandpa, don't spoil him. This child is too arrogant. We must teach him well when we get back. If not, people will think that the Mu family is lacking in education and that this child is so ill-mannered." Mu Xing disapproved of this and looked at her reproachfully. "Wanru, don't say that. I think this child is quite good. He's not like other children who are timid. Newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. He's quite courageous." Mu Wanru opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but hesitated. "What's your name?" Mu Sheng was naturally elated to see the child. He could not help but ask with a smile, teasing him just like how he teased Xiao Yichen. Yu Yu ignored him. He could not help laughing. "This child has some character." "Put me down," Yu Yu said coldly. Mu Wanru was about to stop them when Mu Sheng ordered, "Put him down. Don't hurt the child." Hence, the man put Yu Yu down. Yu Yu struggled free from the man's grip and ran towards Yun Shishir like a madwoman. Yun Shishir had just caught her breath when Yu Yu threw herself into her arms, trembling. "Mommy, mommy, mommy." The scene just now had made him tremble with fear. For a moment, he even thought that he was going to lose her. Seeing that she was safe and sound, Yu Yu still had some lingering fear and hugged Yun Shishir tightly. "Mommy." The helpless and heart-wrenching cries over and over again brought back some of her consciousness. Yun Shishir subconsciously hugged him tightly. Seeing this, Mu Sheng frowned with displeasure and walked toward Yun Shishir. Mu Wanru stopped him immediately. "Grandpa, don't go over, I'm afraid that she'll hurt you." "Wanru, Grandpa, I'll go get the child back." With that, Mu Wanru walked toward Yun Shishir. "Yun Shishir, I'm warning you for the last time. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Call the child out right now, and I'll let bygones be bygones for violating the contract. If you don't listen, don't blame me for being merciless. Xianxia's throat was in so much pain that she could not make a sound. She could only hug Yu tighter. She lifted her eyes with difficulty, only to see Mu Sheng standing at the door. Her heart skipped a beat. Mu Sheng, she had seen him in a financial magazine before. Chapter 1121. She heard that he was the head of the Mu family with the highest authority. That's right, the executioner her mother spoke of. Xianxia's heart wavered all of a sudden. She had always regarded the Mu family as a tiger's den. Hence, even after knowing the truth of her identity, she had never once thought of returning to the Mu family. Now, however, she wanted to acknowledge him. Acknowledge him. She had made up her mind to expose Mu Wanru's identity today. Otherwise, there would be no more chances. This way, she would be able to protect herself and Yu. As she thought of this, she gritted her teeth. Carrying Yu in her arms, she struggled to support her body and walked toward Mu Sheng. Mu Wanru's expression changed when she saw this. She was very sensitive and not stupid. When she saw Xianxia walking toward Mu Sheng, she guessed at once that the latter wanted to reunite with him. No, she must not let her have her way. Mu Wanru rushed over, grabbed her clothes, and pushed her away. You're not allowed to come near. Xianxia ignored her. Her eyes were fixed on Mu Sheng from beginning to end. A hoarse and broken voice escaped from her throat. Grandpa, Grandpa, she wanted to acknowledge him. She had decided to acknowledge him back to the Mu family. She did not want any identity. She only wanted to expose Mu Wanru. She wanted this impostor to disappear from her sight completely. At least, she would not hurt her again and again. Mu Wanru had pinched her too hard earlier, so her voice was broken and hoarse now. Mu Sheng squinted his eyes. He could not quite hear what she was saying. This woman's hair was messy and her clothes were tattered. Disgust flashed across his eyes. In his heart, Xianxia left him the impression of a shrewd and scheming woman. In addition, Mu Wanru kept whispering in his ear to fan the flames. His impression of Xianxia could not be worse. Hence, even if he could not hear clearly, he did not intend to step forward to understand the situation. Even taking a look at it would dirty his eyes. Mu Wanru was furious. She pushed Xianxia to the ground. Xianxia lost her balance and fell to the ground. However, in order to protect Yu, her elbow hit the ground hard. Yu's heart ached terribly. He bit his lower lip hard as bean-sized teardrops dripped onto his mother's face. They were warm and scalding. Mommy, shameless be asterisk. Do you really think that just because you gave birth to 2 children for the Mu family, you can fly to the branch and become a phoenix? Why don't you take a look at your lowly identity? Dream on. Mu Wanru then separated Yun Tianyu and Xianxia in order to deceive others. She grabbed Xianxia and gave her a beating. Xianxia was not one to give in, though. She sprang up and pounced on Mu Wanru. Both of them wrestled with each other. Mu Wanru kept pulling her hair, but Xianxia was not careless. She threw a punch at her and hit her chin. Mu Wanru fell to the ground in pain. Xianxia threw another punch at her. He was so furious that his strength was so great that Mu Wanru lost her ability to fight back. B** starred. Seeing that Mu Wanru was being bullied, Mu Sheng could not take it anymore. He rushed forward and, almost losing all his rationality, raised the cane in his hand high at Xianxia. A chilling aura broke through the wind and arrived. Xianxia caught a glimpse of it from the corner of her eye. Her heart skipped a beat. She nervously held her breath and closed her eyes. Chapter 1122. Xianxia opened her eyes in a daze. She could not help but widen her watery eyes as she held her breath in shock. Yun Tianyu had unknowingly pounced in front of her, his arms supporting her body as he stood still. Yu! Xianxia shrieked in shock. Mu Sheng was also shocked. He hurriedly threw away his cane and carried Yu in his arms. His small face turned deathly pale, without a trace of blood. Large beads of cold sweat continuously seeped out from his forehead. He closed his eyes and actually fainted from the pain. Xianxia tried to snatch the child from his arms to check on his injuries. He pushed her away, though. Dirty woman, don't touch him. You don't have the right to touch him. Xianxia widened her eyes in shock. She still wanted to go forward without regard for her safety, but she was stopped by a soldier at the side. Let's go. Worried about Yu's injuries, the old man hurriedly left with his men. Xianxia struggled behind him, but she could not resist at all. She could only watch helplessly as Yu was taken away. Separation of flesh and blood. This was the most painful thing in the world. Thinking of how Yu had shielded her from such a heavy blow, Xianxia's heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. She broke down and grabbed her hair, wanting to chase after him like a madwoman. Mu Wanru got up from the ground and brushed the dust off her body. She cast a sidelong glance at Xianxia and coldly ordered, "Put this woman under house arrest." Junimo was about to have a cup of coffee and look at the script of the new program when she suddenly heard a strange movement outside the window. She walked to the window with a cup of coffee and pulled the curtains wide open. She saw several military vehicles parked outside the door. She was startled. The vehicles were parked outside Xianxia's house. She could not help becoming more vigilant. She walked to the balcony and looked over. However, he happened to see a soldier carrying Xianxia over his shoulder and stuffing her into the car. Xianxia seemed to have been struck unconscious by a palm strike. Junmo's heart skipped a beat, and in her shock, the coffee cup in her hand fell to the ground and broke into pieces. The sudden movement quickly attracted the attention of the soldiers with sharp ears. The man turned around abruptly and looked sharply in Junmo's direction. But on the huge balcony, the curtains were fluttering. He was afraid that the wind was too strong and the flower pot would fall and break, so he didn't think too much about it. He got into the car and drove off. Junmo hid behind the wall, but she couldn't calm down. She glanced out of the corner of her eye. After the car had driven far away, she rushed out of the house and walked to Xianxia's house. He saw that the gate to the courtyard was wide open. She walked in. In the living room, the lights were still on, but the floor was a mess. The broken vase, the red carved wooden cane thrown to the side, and a few drops of glaring blood. She was shocked. What happened? Was it a kidnapping? Impossible. Junmo recognized at a glance that those military vehicles had Jun Qiu license plates. This wasn't a kidnapping. Then what exactly was going on? Junmo didn't have time to think and called Qinzhou first. As soon as the call connected, Junmo told Qinzhou what had happened. She had no idea what exactly had happened, but it was an undeniable fact that she had seen Jun Qiu's car take Xianxia away. Qinzhou rushed over quickly and was shocked to see Xianxia's house in a mess. What happened? He asked nervously. Chapter 11:23. Qinzhou frowned and decided to give Mu Yaja a call first. However, his phone was switched off. Why was his phone switched off? Why did it have to be at such a crucial time? He heard that he was going overseas some time ago. He should have arrived by now, so why was his phone switched off? Mu residence. The door was kicked wide open by Mu Sheng. Mu Sheng anxiously carried Yu in as he hurried in. Behind him, a few private doctors from the Mu residence hurriedly followed. In her arms, Yun Tianyou's breathing quickened. His whole face was flushed red from the excruciating pain. Beads of sweat covered his entire face, and his fair little face was as gloomy as rouge jade covered in dust. Mu Yichen had just finished his homework and was about to go to bed when he was awakened by anxious footsteps in the corridor. His hearing was sharp, so he would wake up at the slightest sound. The footsteps outside the door were unusually hurried. He rubbed his sleepy eyes and opened the door, only to see Mu Sheng hurrying into the room with a child in his arms. His heart skipped a beat. Although Mu Sheng was in a hurry, he did not see clearly who was in his arms. However, he saw the child's dangling hand. The bracelet on it made him realize that it was Yu. Yu? Why was Yu here? Mu Yichen received a call from Mu Sheng yesterday. He would not be home for a while and would be sticking to Xianxia. Grandpa Mu missed him very much, so he asked him to come back and visit him. Mu Yichen decided to move back for a few days. He had only been away for a day, and something had happened to Yu? When he caught a glimpse of Yu's pale face, Mu Yichen knew that something was amiss. Hence, he chased after him and entered the room. He happened to see Mu Sheng carrying the sickly boy to the bed. "You. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, he realized that he could not reveal the fact that he knew about Yu Yu's existence with Mu Sheng present. Hence, he walked over and tugged at the old man's sleeve nervously. "Great-grandfather, who is he? Why does he look exactly like me? Xiao Yichen, this is an emergency. Go to the side first. I'll talk to you later." With that, he chased him out of the room. A few private doctors walked into the room nervously and locked the door. Mu Yichen stood outside the door and paced back and forth nervously. What was going on? When he was in the room earlier, he saw Yu Yu's pale face and her haggard appearance. He had no idea what had happened, so he hurried back to the room and locked the door. He took out his phone and dialed Xianxia's number. The call went through, but no one answered. He bit his lip and dialed Mu Yaja's number. The phone was turned off. Damn it. Worried, he walked over to Yu Yu's room and paced back and forth uneasily. He didn't know how long he had been waiting, but it felt like a century. The door finally opened. He rushed in, only to see that Yu Yu was already awake. She was leaning against the bed with a gloomy face. Her pair of beautiful and clear eyes were buried in the shadow of her fringe, so he could not see her expression clearly. Mu Sheng was sitting at the side. The spacious room was eerily silent, and the atmosphere was so stifling that it was difficult to breathe. Mu Yichen walked over cautiously. His gaze landed on Yu Yu, only to see that the latter's shoulder was bandaged tightly. Injured. Chapter 11:24. Yu Yu sat on the bed with his back against the headboard and his head bowed in silence. However, when he heard movement at the door, he looked up and saw Xiao Yichen. His eyes flashed and his expression changed slightly. The two little munchkins exchanged glances, then quickly averted their gazes in tacit understanding. Mu Yichen slowly walked to stand behind his grandfather. Mu Sheng sat on the edge of the bed with a deep gaze. His eyes carefully sized up Yu Yu's eyebrows, eyes, and every inch of his facial features. After 7 years, this was the first time he could seriously size up his long-lost great-grandson. His heart was filled with gratification and joy of reuniting after a long separation, but at the same time, he felt worried. This was because this great-grandson seemed to be very cold to him. Looking at his handsome and tender face, Mu Sheng could not help but reach out. Before his fingertips could touch his face, they were coldly swatted away. "Don't touch me." Yu Yu's tone was as cold as ice. His eyes were like cold swords shooting at him. Her cold, distant, and even indifferent gaze hurt the old man immensely. After 7 years, they were supposed to be family, but now, they were more like enemies meeting. Mu Sheng could not help but feel a stabbing pain in his heart. However, he quickly calmed his emotions. He thought to himself, the child is only 7 years old. He has always been with his mother, so it's natural for him to be unfamiliar and guarded against a sudden relative. After being separated for so many years, it's inevitable that there will be some estrangement between them. Moreover, he did not know how that woman usually educated the child. The child seemed to have a lot of hatred for him. Perhaps, Xianxia was deliberately guiding him. In his eyes, this woman harbored evil intentions and secretly hid the Mu bloodline. She must be thinking of marrying into a rich family because of her son. She might have deliberately exaggerated the child's hatred for the Mu family. Thinking of this, Mu Sheng snorted coldly. His hatred for Xianxia reached its peak. Since the child had returned to the Mu family, there was still a long way to go to cultivate their relationship. There was no need to rush now. Now that he had just arrived at the Mu family, he naturally felt unfamiliar. His attitude toward him was a little more distant and cold. This was only natural. Moreover, he approved of this child. When they first met, he had a good impression of Yu Yu. It was not because of anything else, but because of his courage to protect Xianxia. Even though he was young, he already had the sense of responsibility that a mature man should have. Naturally, he was happy to see his children being filial. What was even more commendable was that this child didn't seem to be afraid of strangers, like a newborn calf that wasn't afraid of tigers. With this thought in mind, the gloominess on his face dissipated a little. With a smile on his face, he closed the distance between them and gently teased, "Little guy, you've got a bit of a temper. Tell me, what's your name?" Yu Yu's face remained cold as she ignored his deliberate attempt to get close to her. At the thought of his mother being put under house arrest by him, he did not know how she was doing or if she had been injured. He loathed the old man in front of him. He didn't want to acknowledge this grandpa. He hated anyone who hurt his mommy to the core. You still want me to acknowledge you? It was nothing more than a dream. Chapter 11:25. Yu Yu smirked. His lips curled into an arrogant smirk and his brows arched impatiently. Why should I tell you my name? The old man laughed. That's because I'm your great-grandpa, and you're my great-grandson. We're family. Great-grandpa? Yu Yu cocked a brow, clearly disdainful of this title. The old man did not detect the contempt in his tone, though, and patiently explained, Great-grandpa is your father's grandfather. Little guy, you should call me great-grandpa. It's not impossible for me to tell you my name. Looking at him, Yu Yu narrowed his eyes slightly. There was a hint of arrogance and disrespect on his face as he adopted a negotiating stance. His words clearly meant that he had a condition. Mu Xing smiled. This little guy was really interesting. He was so young, but he gave off a mature vibe. He was only a 7-year-old child, but he actually gave him the illusion that the person sitting in front of him was not a 7-year-old child, but a mature and steady adult man. He asked with interest, It seems that you want to state your conditions? But let's hear them. He knew how to negotiate with him and state his conditions. He was so wise at such a young age. What a shrewd little guy. Yu Yu snorted and made a condition. Let my mommy go. His words had just left his mouth when the old man's face changed, and he rejected him sternly. No way. Why not? Yu Yu was a little angry now. What right do you have to put my mommy under house arrest? That's because your mommy committed an unforgivable crime, he answered with a frown. An unforgivable crime. Did this old man still think that he was the supreme ruler? He thought that he was high and mighty, yet he could casually convict others. In Yu Yu's eyes, the old man was a fatuous and incompetent tyrant. He was old and muddle-headed. Noticing his son's cold expression, Mu Xing realized that he had overreacted. Calming himself down, he said in a low voice, She's not your mommy. Child, you're still young, don't be fooled by that woman. You are the blood of the Mu family. She was the one who kidnapped you and kept you by her side for so many years. She caused us to be separated from each other for so many years. How could I forgive her? She signed a contract with the Mu family. Now that she has violated the contract, I'm going to send her to see the officials. Ha! She's my mommy, the one who gave birth to me and raised me. What you think is not important. I only know that she is my closest kin. You must let her go. Yu Yu smiled coldly and glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. His lips curled into a playful smile as he said faintly, Grandpa, you can't be so foolish. Not being able to distinguish right from wrong, black from white. Mu Xing was taken aback. Yu Yu suddenly said in a deep voice, I called you old grandpa because of my daddy and also to give you some face. Still, I have my bottom line. If you cross it, I swear. His words trailed off. Yu Yu raised his eyes to look at him. The coldness in his eyes intensified to a frightening extent. He did not finish his words, though. He only swore in his heart that if anything happened to his mommy, he would not forgive him. The old man found it strange and could not help probing further. What are you swearing? I swear that I'll make you regret it. Chapter 11:26. Sometimes children were more daring. It could be said that newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. However, for this child to say such words, it was a little too arrogant. No matter what, he was still his elder. Even if he was in the wrong, it was not his place to point him out. It was not that he could not make a joke about an elder as it was harmless, but his attitude should at least be more respectful. After all, he was his elder. Given their seniority, it was only appropriate for them to show a bit of the dignity of an elder. This child actually dared to threaten him. Yu Yu glanced at his gloomy face but did not buy it. The grandfather-grandson pair looked at each other with ugly expressions. It was as if they were in a standoff. Mu Chen saw this and timely asked, Great-grandpa, what's wrong? You look so fierce. Who made you unhappy? Only then did Mu Xing realize that Mu Yichen had entered the room unknowingly. The moment he saw him, he immediately hugged the little guy in his arms and lowered his head to say, "Come, Xiao Yichen. Look, this is your younger brother." Mu Yichen rolled his eyes inwardly. He knew that this was his younger brother. However, he still pretended that this was the first time he had seen his younger brother who looked exactly like him. "Well, this little guy is so cute. Is he really my younger brother?" Mu Xing nodded. Because of Mu Yichen's clown antics, his expression finally eased a little. "Your younger brother was abducted by a bad woman. You two brothers have been separated for 7 years. It's only natural that you two are estranged when you return home today. You should spend more time with him and talk to him." His hope was that the two little guys could develop feelings for each other easily. This way, it would be easier for Yu to get rid of the grudge in his heart. Hence, after giving a few instructions, he left Xiao Yichen in the room and left. Just as the door closed, Xiao Yichen's face sank. He walked to the door and pulled it open slightly. Only when he saw Mu Xing's back slowly leaving with his cane did he feel at ease and lock the door from the inside. Then he walked to the window. Through the clear window, he was surprised to see a group of armed forces outside the door. He estimated that there was at least a company of people surrounding the huge Mu residence so tightly that not even a little breeze could pass through. He turned around and exchanged glances with Yu. Then he said in a deep voice, "You, wait for me here. I'll go to the back door and take a look." As he spoke, Mu Yichen snuck into the backyard and carefully checked the back door. The back door was also surrounded by troops. Mu Yichen's heart skipped a beat. This was a disguised form of house arrest. Mu Xing must have deployed several troops from the army to surround the Mu residence. It seemed like he wanted to keep an eye on Yu and prevent him from escaping. Mu Yichen returned to the room and locked the door from the inside. He walked to the window and drew the curtains. Then he walked to the bed and sat down. Yu narrowed his eyes. Seeing his gloomy face, he could roughly guess what had happened, but he still asked, "How is it?" "They're all armed forces. The entire Mu residence has been surrounded. It's airtight. The possibility of sneaking out is very slim." Yu's heart sank. ***. What exactly happened? Mu Yichen held his hand worriedly. "Where's Mommy?" "Mommy is under house arrest," Yu said anxiously. Chapter 11:27. Now that his mother was in Mu Wanru's hands and her whereabouts were unknown, every second made him restless. "I should have gotten rid of this woman long ago. It's my negligence." Yu's heart burned with anxiety at the thought that his mother's life was in danger because of his negligence. Mu Yichen was stunned when he heard about the incident from Yu. He did not expect so many things to happen in the 2 days that he was away. Earlier, he had read about the school shooting incident from the news, but he did not expect that the so-called shooting incident was not as simple as it seemed. It was an assassination. Yu said in a low voice, "Our main goal now is to cover my escape from here." Mu Yichen furrowed his brows. "That's a little difficult. The Mu residence is now full of spies. Outside the house, there will be sentries. Mu Xing has deployed a few troops from the army. The only place not under surveillance is this house." Yu looked up and met his gaze. He frowned anxiously. For the first time in his life, he felt so powerless and useless. Suddenly, a white light flashed across his mind. He raised his head abruptly and stared fixedly at Mu Yichen's face. He suddenly thought of something. "I've got it." Mu Yichen raised a brow. "What do you mean?" "I've got an idea. But I need you to cooperate with me." "Are you sure?" Mu Yichen was worried and could not help reminding him again. "Yu, the Mu residence is full of spies now. If you take a step out of this house, you'll be captured immediately. You're like a prisoner now, you can't go anywhere." Yu gave him a meaningful smile. "Then, as long as I don't leave this house, won't I be safe?" "Huh." Mu Yichen was a little stunned and mumbled, "I don't understand what you mean, it's so profound." Yu snorted. "You're too stupid." Mu Yichen pursed his lips in anger as his brows sank. Yu suddenly hooked his finger at him mysteriously. "Come here." Xiao Yichen leaned over. Yu leaned in close to his ear and told him about his plan. Mu Yichen's face revealed a look of realization as he listened. Why didn't I think of this? As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly frowned worriedly. But your shoulder is injured. Is it okay to do this? Yu, however, replied in a nonchalant tone, Don't worry. It's just a small injury. Right now, Mommy's safety was the most urgent matter. His small injury was nothing to worry about. Yu's plan. The mercenary group sent by the Hurricane Group would arrive in the capital tomorrow night. Before that, he had to leave the Mu residence and make other plans. Mu Yichen pondered for a moment and nodded. But night fell, and the cold rain enveloped the bustling city. In an underground private warehouse in the suburbs, the streets were quiet and only the sound of the heavy rain could be heard. In the dark underground prison, there was a strong smell of blood. The moonlight shone in through the narrow iron window. In the dim light, a woman covered in injuries was lying quietly against the wall. His thick black hair draped messily over his shoulders, covering half of his delicate and pretty face. Chapter 11:28. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted and her eyes were tightly shut. There was a line of blood at the corner of her lips, and she was clenching her teeth. Her lips were slightly twisted as if she was trying hard to endure something. Even though she was unconscious, her hands were covering her abdomen, and she maintained this strange posture. Her body was slightly curled up and her clothes were tattered. She was riddled with wounds and there were traces of violence all over her body. The woman seemed to have fainted from the pain as she was so stiff that she didn't move at all. The prison door was opened and Mu Wanru led a group of burly men dressed in black as they strolled in. She stopped in her tracks and gave a signal with her eyes. A man from the side strode over. There was a hideous scar on the man's face and it was so long that it covered half of his face. His originally ugly facial features looked even more sinister and terrifying. He strolled to the woman's side and kicked her face with the tip of his shoe. Seeing that there was no reaction, he kicked her shoulder forcefully. There was a crack, and it sounded like the sound of bones being dislocated. After a while, there was still no movement. It seemed like this woman had really fainted. He turned his head and gave a signal with his eyes. His subordinate nodded in understanding and walked over to take out a pair of handcuffs. He tied her wrists to the metal pillars and then brought over a basin of cold water mixed with salt and splashed it on her lowered head. The salt water poured down like a waterfall and corroded all the wounds on her body. In a burst of intense and piercing pain, Xianxia suddenly opened her eyes and sucked in a breath of cold air with a hiss. The sudden pain caused her to raise her head high and hit her head heavily on the wall. Under the hard impact, her mind finally cleared up a little. She shook her head strenuously to get rid of the salt water that had seeped into her eyelids. Her blurry vision overlapped and gradually became clear. She saw the person standing in front of her at a glance. Before she could react, she saw Mu Wanru walking in front of her and squatting down calmly. She grabbed her wet hair and pulled, forcing her face to come closer to her. The force was so strong that it was as if she wanted to pull out a handful of her hair. Even if it was Xianxia, she was also forced to wake up by the pain. Mu Wanru bared her teeth and reached out to pat her cheeks provocatively. She gave a sinister smile and said, Xianxia, I didn't expect your life to be so tough. Look at you now, you're in such a sorry state. If you didn't go against me earlier, wouldn't all of this, wouldn't it? Ha! Xianxia's lips curled up playfully. Lifting her heavy eyelids, the tip of her tongue slowly licked away the fishy sweetness on her lips. For a moment, she could not tell if it was her own blood or the taste of salt water. And disgusting. Instead of getting angry, Mu Wanru laughed. Her lips curled up to reveal her pearly whites as she said in a low voice, Xianxia, you really are a B*teach who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You're already at death's door and you're still so stubborn. I think you haven't suffered enough, right? Ha! You, as long as you're a smart person, you should know your place and kneel down to beg me for mercy. If you make me feel better, maybe I'll let you off. How about that? Do you want to beg me for mercy? Chapter 11:29. Xianxia's eyes were half opened lazily, but there was a cold and mocking glint in her eyes, as though she was mocking her ignorance and naivety. She didn't open her mouth but just stared at her quietly. That gaze, which was mixed with pity, disdain and contempt, was extremely cold, so cold that it didn't have any warmth. From top to bottom, her gaze was sizing her up bit by bit, as though she was gouging out her skin. The icy cold gaze seemed to penetrate into her bones. If she begged for mercy, would Mu Wanru let her off? For her, she must have some motive for kidnapping her here. She wanted her to beg for mercy, so before she achieved her motive, she wanted to fiercely admire her lowly attitude. Why should she seek humiliation for herself? Mu Wanru was completely angered by this cold and stern gaze as she grabbed her hair and viciously slammed her head against the hard wall. You slut who doesn't know what's good for you. For her, I'd like to see how hard your bones can be. Xianxia groaned in pain as her brows were tightly knitted together. She only felt a violent shock in her head, as though her soul was about to be knocked out. A shadow flashed in front of her eyes, and immediately after, she felt something sticky slowly flowing down from her forehead and seeping into her eyes. Her vision was already scarlet red, and a burning pain assaulted her. She frowned and cursed in a low voice. Who's the one who doesn't know what's good for her? Mu Wanru, don't go overboard. Say it. What's your ulterior motive? Why don't you say it out? Before she could finish her sentence, Xianxia suddenly felt a metallic taste in her throat, and following that, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing her in such a sorry state, Mu Wanru couldn't help but feel pleased. Her motive? You want to know? She suddenly leaned over and grabbed her hair viciously. Xianxia, do you believe that I can kill you right now? Xianxia turned her face away in disgust. She glanced at him from the corner of her eyes and coldly spat out 2 words, You want to kill me or torture me? Since I've fallen into your hands, I'll do whatever you want. Why are you spouting so much nonsense? How stubborn. If possible, I really want to kill you right now. However, it's not time yet. Mu Wanru, after pretending for so long, you finally revealed your ambition. However, you are really unbelievably naive. I'm even considering how you're going to die. Hearing her merciless ridicule, Mu Wanru flew into a rage out of humiliation and slapped her. Xianxia turned her head around fiercely and her face suffered a vicious slap. It stung and hurt as though it was on fire. She stared at him coldly and mocked, Mu Wanru, don't touch me with your dirty hands. I find it disgusting. Mu Wanru was flustered and exasperated. She had tied her up and brought her here and got someone to teach her a lesson. However, she had thought that when she came over, she would see Xianxia begging for mercy. Along the way, she couldn't help but look forward to the scene of this woman kneeling in front of her, kowtowing and begging for mercy. Just thinking about it made her feel extremely pleased. However, even though she was covered in injuries, she still had a calm and tranquil expression on her face. Mu Wanru could not help but feel infuriated. Xianxia, why don't you take a look at whose hands you've fallen into? Your mouth is still so cheap. Aren't you afraid that I'll tear your mouth apart? Chapter 1130. Xianxia pursed her lips and sneered. But she did not use words to agitate her. However, it was impossible for her to beg for mercy. Even if she had to die a quick and painless death, she would not seek humiliation. Mu Wanru suddenly smiled sinisterly. Xianxia, do you know how jealous I used to be of you? What right do you have to have such beautiful looks? What right do you have to gain the love of so many children without doing anything? What right do you have to have such a rich family background when we both come from humble backgrounds? Her words, however, left Xianxia baffled. It turned out that when she first entered the orphanage, there were many boys in the orphanage who secretly liked this beautiful little girl who had just arrived. However, even though Xianxia was an orphan with no one to rely on at that time, her temperament was innate. She was naturally elegant and had the temperament of a noble. Therefore, although many children admired her from the bottom of their hearts, they did not dare to get close to her because of their humble nature. Mu Wanru was extremely jealous. She had spent so many years in the Welfare Institute and put in so much effort to gain the trust and love of the children. What right did Xianxia have to snatch away the love that should have belonged to her just because of her looks? Why did the heavens give her so much love and give her so much? How could she not be jealous? But everything I have has been snatched away by you, hasn't it? Yun Shirshir said coldly. Mu Wanru was stunned when she heard that, but she smiled. Indeed, it started from that jade pendant. Everything that originally belonged to Yun Shirshir was taken away by her. She unscrupulously enjoyed the glory and wealth that did not belong to her. She enjoyed the endless love that did not belong to her. She even snatched away the happiness that should have belonged to her. If it were not for that freak combination of factors that led to the exchange of identities, Yun Shirshir would have become Mu Yaja's fiancé. And she might have been adopted by an ordinary family and grown up in an ordinary family. However, even if he took everything away from her, so what? Mu Wanru originally thought that once she became Mu Yaja's fiancé, happiness would be within her reach. But what did she get in return? It was exploitation. He had been ruthlessly used as a chess piece. In order to make use of her, Mu Yaja had even taken away her rights as a mother. Only now did she realize that her so-called happiness was nothing more than an illusion. Mu Yaja had actually deceived her into losing her qualifications to be a mother. Infertility. How laughable was this lie? She had actually believed him and had even felt guilty towards him all this while. She even thought that it was all her fault that she couldn't give birth to a child for the Mu family. However, in the end she was completely played in the palm of his hand. She loved him so much, but he ruthlessly used her and betrayed her. How stupid was she to trust the man she loved deeply without hesitation and treat him like a treasure? In the end, not to mention happiness, even that engagement was just a pretense. What about Yun Shirshir? What right did she have to receive Mu Yaja's love? What right did she have to have so much, to have everything that made her jealous? Mu Wanru stared at her with a deadly stare, as if there was a raging fire of jealousy burning in her chest. Yun Shirshir, to be honest, I used to be so jealous of you. Since Mu Yaja loves you so much, I'd like to see how far he can go for you. Chapter 1131. Mu Wanru's lips curled into a sinister and bloodthirsty smile. Take a guess. Since you're so important to him, do you think he'll give up the Mu family's inheritance for you? Yun Shirshir was stunned. She suddenly realized that Mu Wanru intended to use her to blackmail Mu Yaja into giving up his right to inherit the Mu family. Mu Wanru, you're so despicable. Still, how important do you think I am to Mu Yaja? He won't give up his right to inherit the Mu family for me. I think you should give up. Yun Shirshir said coldly. Mu Wanru cocked a brow and gave him a sinister smile. You alone may not be that important, but what about adding Yun Tianyu to the mix? Yun Shirshir's face drained of blood and turned ghastly pale the moment she said that. What do you want? What do I want? Mu Wanru grabbed her face and said fiercely, I want Mu Yaja to give up his right to inherit the Mu family. Mu Wanru, you're despicable. Yun Shirshir gritted her teeth. I'm warning you, you're not allowed to lay a finger on Yu, or else. What can you do to me? Mu Wanru interrupted her coldly and taunted. Yun Shirshir, you can't even protect yourself now. I advise you not to put up any unnecessary struggle. Yun Shirshir's gaze was as cold as a blade. At this moment, she wished that her gaze could kill. That way, she could cut this woman into pieces. You don't have to glare at me like that, Yun Shirshir. You're so pitiful. Do you think that you're so arrogant just because Mu Yaja dotes on you? What are you without him, though? You're just a pitiful worm. Now, you're just struggling on your deathbed. Yun Shirshir said coldly, Mu Wanru, I advise you not to play with fire. Yun Shirshir, you should know your place. Right now, if you please me, I will be kind and torture you less before you die. Don't be stubborn. You'll be the one suffering a fate worse than death when the time comes. As Mu Wanru spoke, she stretched out her leg and kicked her face. Yun Shirshir abruptly turned her face away and clenched her teeth so hard that they almost broke. Humiliation welled up in his heart. For the first time in his life, he hated himself for being so useless. She finally saw through Mu Wanru's motive. She was planning to use her and Yu to threaten Mu Yaja to give up his authority over the Mu family. Then she would kill them both. This woman's heart was so vicious and her methods were so despicable. Yun Shirshir's eyes were bloodshot as she stared at her hatefully. Mu Wanru enjoyed her angry face and couldn't help but smile as she said casually, "Yun Shirshir, you really don't intend to kowtow to me and beg for mercy? Now I'm giving you this chance. If you kowtow to me and beg for mercy, perhaps I'll be kind and give you a quick death. Before you die, I won't torture you so much." Yun Shirshir, too, sat up and leaned against the wall with much effort. Even though her hands were handcuffed to the iron pillar and her body was already battered and exhausted. Her whole body was dripping with blood and her face was covered with blood. Her wet hair was messy. However, some people were born with an elegant temperament. Even though she had fallen into hell and was in a mess, it didn't affect her elegant temperament. Chapter 1132. Yun Shirshir replied coldly, "You've already hung my arms up, how am I supposed to kowtow to you and beg for mercy? At the very least, you should release me." Mu Wanru's eyes narrowed. "You're trying to escape?" Mu Wanru went into deep thought for a moment and swept a glance over. The man standing beside her immediately stepped forward and unlocked her handcuffs. "You're not allowed to play any tricks." Yun Shirshir's hands were released from the metal pillar and immediately handcuffed. She rubbed her wrists in pain and raised her eyes coldly, only to see Mu Wanru standing arrogantly in front of her with a complacent look on her face. "Let's begin." Mu Wanru couldn't wait to see her lower her head and beg for mercy. Yun Shirshir slowly took a few steps toward her. All of a sudden, she grabbed her by the collar and pushed her to the ground. Sitting on her body, Yun Shirshir wrapped the handcuffs around her neck and strangled her fiercely. Mu Wanru had not expected that Yun Shirshir would still dare to do such a thing under such circumstances. She couldn't react in time and was almost suffocated by the handcuffs. She struggled painfully as her legs kicked wildly and even her high heels were sent flying. A few men by the side immediately stepped forward to stop her, but Yun Shirshir seemed to have turned ruthless. Even though her hair was being held tightly, she didn't release her grip. The handcuffs were locked tightly around Mu Wanru's neck and she used a lot of strength and very soon, a deep blood mark was formed. Yun Shirshir lowered her head and stuck close to Mu Wanru's face as she looked into her eyes. The hatred in her eyes was obvious. "Mu Wanru, since you're bent on killing me, then why don't you accompany me in death? How about that?" You let go." Because of the excessive suffocation, Mu Wanru's consciousness was in a mess and she couldn't even utter a coherent sentence as she kept struggling. She saw despair and hatred in Yun Shirshir's eyes. Crazy. This woman is crazy. However, Yun Shirshir knew that she was very clear-headed. She was not afraid of any threats. However, she could not watch this woman hurt you. Yun Shirshir suddenly pulled the iron chain and tightened it around Mu Wanru's neck. Mu Wanru's face was flushed red, and the veins on her forehead were bulging. She was on the verge of suffocating. She turned her head with a ferocious expression and struggled with her hands. The man beside her picked up a chair and smashed it on Yun Shirshir's back. Bang! A sound was heard, one of the legs of the chair was broken. Wood chips flew everywhere. Dust flew in the dimly lit basement. Yun Shirshir's body stiffened and she fainted. Mu Wanru was helped up by someone. She covered her throat and coughed violently. Her vision was blurry and her whole body was spinning. F*CK. B*T. She walked to Yun Shirshir's side and stretched out her leg to kick her. However, when she lifted her leg, her whole body was in a mess. She kicked empty air and her body went limp as she fell to the ground. Mu Wanru cursed as she stood up from the ground. She picked up a wooden stick from the side and was about to teach her a lesson. However, her phone rang at the wrong time. Mu Wanru panted for a while and threw the wooden stick aside. She looked at the phone screen and saw that it was a call from Mu Sheng. She immediately calmed her rapid breathing and picked up the call. "Grandpa." "Wanru, where did you go?" "Oh, Grandpa, don't worry, I'll be back soon." "Where's that woman?" Chapter 1133. There was a momentary panic in Mu Wanru's voice, but she quickly regained her composure. "I've already put her under house arrest." "Don't touch her for now. I have something to ask her when we have time," he said in a low voice. Mu Wanru sneered inwardly. I'm afraid there's no chance for that. Still, she said, okay, Grandpa. I'll be right back. Where's that child? That child was very distant to me and was very cold to me. I've asked Xiao Yichen to accompany him. Hopefully, it can open his heart. His tone was indescribably sad and dejected. Mu Wanru smiled and comforted him at once. Grandpa, don't be anxious. He's still young. Coming to an unfamiliar environment, he definitely needs time to adapt and get used to it. Besides, you've been separated from him for 7 years. You're still a stranger to him. He needs time to get to know each other. As time passes, feelings will develop. I hope so, he sighed. It's getting late, you should hurry back. Mu Wanru hung up the phone and instructed her subordinates, you guys, keep an eye on her, do you understand? They nodded in agreement. Mu Wanru then left. The door to the warehouse slowly closed. The men looked at each other before turning around and hanging Xianxia by her hands on a pillar. One of the men could not help taking a few more glances at her. This lass is quite pretty. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but reach out and pinch her soft waist, the corners of his mouth curling into an extremely lewd smile. Another man hit his hand from the side. Don't move. Io, what do you mean by this? This woman is so pretty, can't we touch her? Didn't you hear what Miss Mu said? Keep an eye on her and don't think about anything else. The man refused to give up and encouraged, anyway, this woman will die in the end. Why don't we have some fun while she's still alive? Look at this woman, she's quite pretty. It's such a pity to let her die like this. Be careful not to kill someone. The man on the side shouted. Wouldn't it be fine to be more careful? Big brother, why don't you go first? Anyway, as the underling, it's his turn to play last. This man obviously coveted Xianxia. It would be a pity for such a beauty to die like this. Why not take advantage of the fact that she's dying to give these brothers some pleasure? Come on, don't try anything funny. The higher-ups had ordered for this woman to be kept alive. Take it easy. Tonight, we'll take turns to keep watch. Don't mess around and ruin things. This man had spoken, as if his words had some authority. Even though the few lackeys on the side were itching unbearably, they had no choice but to listen obediently and give up. However, she was still thinking about it in her heart. When Mu Wanru returned to the Mu residence, the living room was brightly lit. She gave Mu Lianjue a call before returning to the Mu residence. According to his instructions, Mu Wanru had already placed Xianxia under house arrest in an extremely remote place. Mu Lianjue was naturally very satisfied with the plan going smoothly. Over the phone, he told her that Mu Yazhou was not in the country and that they had 2 days. They had to move Yun Tianyu out of the Mu residence before tomorrow night. Chapter 1134. Now that Yun Tianyu was trapped in the Mu residence, it was the best opportunity to strike. However, there was not much time left. After tonight, he had to take Yun Tianyu away early the next morning. When he arrived at the room, he saw Xiao Yichen standing in front of the window with his hands in his pockets. He was sizing up the armed forces outside the Mu residence with a gloomy face. Yun Tianyu, on the other hand, was lying on his side on the bed. Mu Yichen warily turned around when he heard the commotion. When he saw that it was his grandfather, a sweet smile bloomed on his face. Great-grandpa. The old man smiled and nodded. He then looked at Yun Tianyu, who was lying on the bed, only to see his drooping eyelids and unconcealable fatigue. Is he asleep? Mu Yichen smiled. Little brother seems to be tired, so he's asleep. The old man pondered for a moment before asking, how is it? Mu Yichen walked to the bedside and slowly sat on his side. He gently placed his hand on the back of Yu Yu's hand and frowned helplessly. Little brother is a little cold to me. He seems to be a little afraid of strangers. Still, he's just returned home, so everything is unfamiliar to him. We won't be so distant after we get to know each other for a while. The old man was stunned. For some reason, Mu Yichen gave him a very unfamiliar aura. Although the person standing in front of him was indeed Mu Yichen, the aura he exuded was inexplicably mature and steady. He was not as naive as he used to be. Instead, he was calm and wise. He originally thought that Yun Tianyo's arrival would cause Mu Yichen to be disgusted and ostracized. Unexpectedly, as an elder brother, Mu Yichen was tolerant of his little brother's arrival. This was beyond his expectations. He could not help asking, "Yichen, what do you think of this little brother of yours?" "I like him very much." Mu Yichen raised a brow, his eyes shining. "Great-grandpa, I'm very happy to have such an adorable little brother. From now on, I'll be an elder brother. I'll take responsibility as an elder brother and take good care of him." "Oh, Yichen is such a good boy." Mu Xing hugged his shoulders. However, from an angle that he couldn't see, Mu Yichen's eyes flashed with indifference and disgust. Raising his head, he said, "Great-grandpa, I'll go back to my room to rest. I still have to go to the kindergarten tomorrow." "Rest early. I'll accompany this child." "Great-grandfather, aren't you going to sleep?" Mu Yichen tilted his head, looking very innocent. The concern in her words greatly pleased the old man. "I want to spend more time with him." "Then be good. Go back to your room and sleep." "Yes." Mu Yichen left the room. The moment he closed the door, his eyes turned cold. He slowly picked up his pockets, but suddenly realized that he didn't seem to know where Mu Yichen's room was. Looking around, Mu Yichen slowly narrowed his eyes. That's right. Right now, Xiao Yichen was lying on the bed in Yu Yu's clothes and had fallen asleep. At this moment, Mu Yichen, who had left the room, was Yu Yu, who had changed into Xiao Yichen's clothes. He looked at the long corridor outside the door. The Mu residence was ridiculously huge. He suddenly walked to the staircase and ordered the servant downstairs, "My room is in a mess. Help me tidy it up." "Yes, young master." With that, the servant went up to the second floor. Yu Yu followed him into Mu Yichen's room, only to hear the servant's strange voice. "Young master, your room is not in a mess." Chapter 1135. There was a light fragrance in Mu Yichen's room. Yu Yu surveyed his surroundings and slowly walked to the window. He carefully pulled open the curtains and peered outside. He could still vaguely see the patrolling soldiers stationed at the entrance. This old Master Mu had really made use of his speed to the extreme. She did not know when he had deployed another wave of troops to surround the huge Mu residence so tightly that it was airtight. He was not planning to let even a fly in. He closed the curtains tightly, walked to the bathroom, locked the door, took out his phone, and dialed Li Hanlin's number. As he did not have his phone with him, he could only use Mu Yichen's phone. The call was quickly connected. On the other end, Li Hanlin was especially alert. The moment he picked up the call, he asked tentatively, "Is this Director Yun?" "It's me." Yu Yu's voice was gloomy. "Director Yun, what exactly happened?" Li Hanlin's tone was urgent and nervous. Clearly, he did not know what had happened. The mercenaries sent to guard the villa had suffered heavy casualties. It was said that they had been encircled by the armed forces on a large scale. Of the dozen or so mercenaries, only 2 survived, and they were seriously injured. What did it mean to be on a large scale? A whole company of armed forces. What exactly happened that required the deployment of such a large number of armed forces? Li Hanlin was very anxious when he could not get through to Yun Tianyo's phone. Yun Tianyu patiently recounted what had happened and informed him of his current state of being imprisoned by the Mu family. The Mu residence is currently surrounded by armed forces. According to my estimation, there are 300 to 400 people. 300 to 400 people? Li Hanlin cursed inwardly. So many people? What exactly was Mu Sheng planning to do? They're probably afraid that I'll be taken away. Things aren't that simple though. It's dangerous for me to stay here any longer. Li Hanlin immediately said, "Then, we'll bring the troops over tomorrow. Hurricane's mercenary team should arrive in the capital tomorrow." Once they were in place, he would immediately rush to the Mu residence. Yun Tianyu, however, said in a low voice, "There's no need to mobilize so many people. Wait for me at the entrance of Alan Bell's kindergarten at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow." He then roughly explained his plan to Li Hanlin. The boy's plan was simple. With the stealing the sky and swapping the sun, he pretended to be Mu Yichen and switched identities. The next morning, Mu Yichen would be sent to kindergarten by the Mu family's driver. He arranged for Li Hanlin to meet him at the school gate at 8:30. Li Hanlin was stunned. He could not help but marvel at Yu Yu's quick-wittedness. To be able to think of this so calmly at such a critical juncture was truly not simple. "Agent Li, bring your men and arrive on time tomorrow. Don't make too much noise to avoid arousing suspicion. But we have to match everyone with weapons." "Yes. I'll send you my GPS location. If anything happens, I'll send a signal in time." "All right, I understand. Listen to my arrangements for the rest." Yun Tianyu hung up the call and raised his wrist to activate the GPS function of his smartwatch. He then sent a satellite location to Li Hanlin's phone. After securing it, he walked to the desk and opened the drawer. There was a notebook inside. Chapter 1136. He keyed in a series of commands, but the system displayed the location of Xianxia. Yun Tianyu furrowed his brows. According to Mu Sheng, he had placed his mommy under house arrest. Where exactly was she being held now? Previously, he had installed a GPS system in his mommy's phone and implanted a GPS chip in her watch. However, through the GPS system, one showed that she was at Xianxia, while the other showed that she was at 28 Yushu Street, Fuyang Road. Yun Tianyu's heart skipped a beat as anxiety and panic appeared on his usually calm face. He bit his lower lip hard as his eyes flickered. Soon, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath to force himself to calm down. It was at this point that he needed to remain calm. Otherwise, he would only be flustered. Yu Yu's gaze fell on the screen again. He opened the system interface and hacked into the surveillance network of Xianxia. The surveillance network of Xianxia had extensive coverage. In the first image, a soldier carried an unconscious woman into a car. Yu Yu recognized the unconscious woman as Yun Shishir through her clothes. He paused the image and locked onto the car plate number. He hacked into the traffic network's surveillance system and keyed in the plate number. Instantly, countless moving images of vehicles popped up on the screen. He played the videos one by one. However, the surveillance footage showed the vehicle driving north along Fuyang Road, crossing the 321, a national highway, and the Hujiang Bridge before reaching the entrance of the Mu residence without any hindrance. When the car stopped, Yu paused the video, but he did not see Yun Shishir. Strange. He clearly saw his mommy get into this car. Why was she missing? Did she vanish into thin air? Impossible. He replayed the video again and carefully studied every detail in the surveillance footage. When he saw the military vehicle stop at Fuyang Road, it suddenly stopped at the corner of the street and stopped moving. He could only see a corner of the car's front when it stopped. Coincidentally, the car stopped at the blind spot of the surveillance camera, so he could not see what happened when the car stopped. The car stopped for about 5 minutes before continuing on its way to the Mu residence. Yu Yu narrowed his eyes slightly. The car stopped at Fuyang Road for 5 minutes. The last location on his mommy's watch also showed that she was at Fuyang Road and Yushu Street. Linking these two pieces of suspicious information together, Yu Yu quickly caught a hint of what was going on. They had been secretly transferred away. He continued to zoom in on the video, and through the surveillance footage from other locations, he quickly locked onto a Mercedes-Benz sedan. After obtaining the car's license plate number, he keyed in the license plate number. However, the information that popped up was a blank. Yun Tianyu's expression changed, but his heart turned cold at once. It seemed that this car had a fake license plate and the license plate was invalid. The city's transportation network system required real and valid license plate numbers to obtain information about the vehicle's movements. Without a valid license plate number, trying to lock onto the car's every direction in the huge traffic system of Beijing was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. There was simply no possibility of accurately locating the car. Chapter 1137. However, as it was at night, the clarity of the surveillance footage was limited. Moreover, the traffic was like water. At night, the cars moved at high speed, and this Mercedes-Benz was a more common brand, so it was easy to blur the target. The only clue he had was like a stone sinking into the sea. A wave of despair washed over him. Yun Tianyu clenched his fists tightly as his face turned ghastly pale. Once again, he resented himself for not taking action in time and giving the enemy an opportunity. He stood up abruptly and walked to the window. His fierce gaze swept across the soldiers surrounding the entrance. He swore that if anything happened to his mother, he would do everything in his power to raze the entire Mu group to the ground overnight. Just as he was at his wit's end, he suddenly thought of something. A white light flashed across his mind. He suddenly recalled something. He returned to the computer and entered a series of commands. Through the GPS, he located Mu Wanru's car. It was a military A9918X Audi. The GPS showed that the Audi had been parked at the intersection of Fuyang Road and Yushu Street for 2 minutes. Soon it drove away. This was a crucial clue. He was suspicious. Mu Wanru had obviously moved the person behind Mu Sheng's back. As for where she had been moved to, it was impossible to track her. At least, he was clear of one thing. Mu Wanru was one of the masterminds behind this. Perhaps, she was the one who had secretly moved the person to another place. Perhaps, there would be other clues and rewards if he started from her. Royal Morocco Hotel. As there was an 8-hour time difference between Morocco and China, it was now 11 a.m. Mu Yaja had just arrived in Morocco when, under Mu Linfeng's arrangement, he attended a royal banquet. After the banquet ended, he returned to the hotel to rest. When he woke up, he realized that his phone was out of battery. He immediately ordered someone to charge it. When Mu Yaja went downstairs, Mu Linfeng was already sitting in the dining room. Upon seeing him, Mu Yaja respectfully greeted, "Second uncle." "You're awake." Mu Linfeng sat elegantly at the dining table and flipped through the newspaper with a solemn expression. Mu Linfeng was Mu Yaja's second uncle and the other person in charge of the Mu family. His status was prominent and his methods were similar. It could be said that the reason why Mu Yaja was able to smoothly obtain the power of the Mu family was because of him behind the scenes. It was not to be underestimated. Thus, it was clear that Mu Linfeng's position in the Mu family was particularly prominent. It was not because of anything else, but because he held a frightening amount of power in his hands. When a family developed to a certain scale, it was no longer a simple business family. The reason why Disheng Financial Group was able to control more than half of the country's business lifelines was not only due to Mu Yaja's ruthless methods and extraordinary capabilities, but also due to the Mu family's supreme centralization of power. It could be said that Mu Linfeng's status was on par with Mu Yaja's. It was just that, due to his identity, he could not be completely exposed to the public. Thus, very few people knew of his name. Mu Yaja sat down at the dining table. Just as he sat down, Mu Linfeng spoke first. "I heard that the banquet yesterday went very smoothly." Chapter 1138. Mu Linfeng discreetly studied Mu Yaja's expression, which was as calm as usual. Inwardly, however, he was a little displeased. "I heard that you danced with Princess Charlotte at the banquet last night. You did well." Mu Yaja's tone remained indifferent. Lowering his head, Mu Linfeng set the newspaper aside and wiped his hands with a wet towel. "This morning, Duke Hansbach of Morocco's imperial family hinted to me that Princess Charlotte has feelings for you. Princess Charlotte is the beloved daughter of Morocco's eldest princess, Caitlin. She has an outstanding appearance and a net worth of $1.2 billion. She's now the second in line to the throne. Arrange a time for you to meet her later. Try to get to know each other better." Mu Yaja's gaze froze. He abruptly looked up, his gaze cold. He suddenly understood why second uncle had specially summoned him to leave the country. He was trying to use his brain again. Mu Yaja was very displeased with Mu Linfeng's decision to arrange a relationship with the imperial family's princess on his own accord. However, given Mu Linfeng's seniority, he could not expose him openly. He merely said expressionlessly, "There's no need for a meeting, is there? I'll be returning home after tonight. I still have matters to attend to at the company." His cold refusal didn't surprise Mu Linfeng, but this response made him extremely displeased. "You have matters to attend to at the company?" Mu Linfeng was very displeased with his answer. He snorted and said casually, "I think you're the one who's thinking about that woman." Although he did not say it out loud, Mu Yaja was well aware of who he was referring to by that woman. A dangerous glint flashed across his eyes as he narrowed them. Even though the person sitting in front of him was second uncle of the Mu family, there was still a hint of displeasure in his tone. You've investigated her? I've investigated everyone around you. Mu Linfeng did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Mu Yaja's expression changed. His eyes turned slightly cold, but it only lasted for a fleeting moment before disappearing from his sight. Still, deep down, he still felt uncomfortable with Mu Linfeng's action. All of a sudden, Mu Linfeng lifted his head and knocked on the table with his fingertips. His tone revealed his dissatisfaction with Mu Yaja. Yaja, you know that I've always thought highly of you. Among